Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September 7th Historic District Commission meetings. Before we get started, the board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point, or it will be deemed waived. Okay, I'm going to make introductions of the board to all of you folks out there. Our newest member, Joanne, or is it Joanne or Joanne?
It's Johanna. Like
Johanna.
ha ha ha.
I understand. Johanna Landis. And then we have Dan Brown,
Good evening.
Martin Ryan,
Hello.
and Reagan Rudig.
Good evening.
My name is John Wyckoff. I'm the chair, and Reagan is the vice chair. Excuse me for not mentioning that. Nick Cracknell on my left.
Planning Department, good evening.
Yes. And our city council representative,
Hello, good evening.
Blaylock. Margot Doring,
Good evening.
David Adams,
Good evening.
and Karen Buffard. at the
Good
end.
evening.
Okay. We have, our first order of business is administrative approvals, and Mr. Cracknell reads these. So if you'd like to take over.
You,
What,
John,
minutes?
excuse me.
Minutes?
Minutes?
Can I,
Excuse me, all right. No, what?
We don't have any minutes.
Excuse me, what
No
is that,
minutes?
Dan?
I need to recuse myself from one of the things.
Which one?
Where did it change up? Mill Street, 33 Mill Street,
In the public hearings, down
Yeah.
lower,
Okay.
later on.
later on.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that
Okay.
now. So we have some minutes to approve,
We
which
don't have any minutes to approve.
they don't seem to be on the agenda, do they?
Oh,
They were in the other one.
they're in there. but-
Yeah, they're in the original packet, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so this is a new packet because of,
Because of Rains Ave.
okay, so, would somebody like to make a motion about the minutes?
Move to accept and place on file?
September 7th.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we've gotten through the minutes. And now, Nick.
Okay. Administrative approvals, we've got 7 items on the agenda. Does anybody want to pull themselves either out of any of those or take them out because you've got questions before I begin?
There was one that we had a little problem with. What was
11 Walden?
Yeah.
I think John and I spoke about this morning. 11 Walden, as you know, was here last month, and they're putting a condenser on the side of the house that's very close to the property line. They did confirm it was on their property, and they showed where the conduit was going to be going to the heads inside the property, which is behind and beside. They haven't proposed, I don't think, screening, but more importantly, they're going to need a variance to put that in that location, even though it's on their property. It's within 10 feet of the lot line. So I think it makes sense that we continue that item
Yes.
till the BOA has authorized its presence in that location.
Certainly. Could I have that motion, please?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Continue that to
Okay, all
October.
those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 11 Walden is continued. Now we can get going. Nick.
Okay. So I'll start at the top with 60 Penn Hollow. It has, I believe, 5 items in the request. There's a pretty lengthy submission here with red clouded areas on the previous elevations indicating the changes that are requested. I'll just read the 5 and then we can answer any questions. Tracy Kozak is in the audience, who's the design professional for the project, so she can answer any questions. Essentially, they are looking at the adjusting or changing the second floor freeze band. I'm just going to read this at the vertical grain wood. I don't even know how to read that. Akoya trim band, adjust the board spacing from 12 inches to 6. So the freeze is being adjusted from 12 to 6 inches in width. Number 2, a Daniel Street sidewalk, they're removing 1 gate. Number 2. Number 3, at the west alley facade, the second floor windows, they are proposing to replace the wood trim. Again, the Akoya trim below the sills with a different siding. Prodema, I have no idea what these are, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Redeemer.
Number 4, at the west alley facade, they are proposing to add a fireplace exhaust and chimney heat relief for the tenant fireplaces that are on the ground floor. So it's not the fireplaces, it's the vent. They were done earlier in administrative approval. And then the last one, number 5, on the southwest vessel cheek walls, they're proposing to change the Prodema siding from a dark color to a medium color, remove the copper and wood trim detail at the narrow space between the timbers. I'm going to leave any questions you have to Tracy.
Tracy, I'd just like to say, I was just down there looking at the building today, and I've never seen a building with more undone portions to it than that building. Everywhere I looked, there was building material, paper hanging. And I believe that or somebody has given you a 6 months extension. What was that, 2 months ago,
For what?
to finish the building? 6 months, an additional 6 months? Maybe it was the sidewalk rental.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the construction. It's been
Okay.
moving along in accordance with the CMMP, and
Yeah,
it's actually been pretty efficient.
well, actually, I've never seen a building quite
Well, I don't-
slowly
Okay.
built like that.
it's a pretty difficult building,
It
I'm
is
sure,
a
to
difficult
construct.
building.
Does anybody have any questions on the 5 items requested?
I just wanted to know what the difference between the two materials is. Is there another part of the building that we can point to that says it's changing from this to that?
Tracy Kozak, Arc of Architects. I believe you're referring to the item Prodema? Is that your question?
Yeah.
That is the field, the primary siding on the building. It looks like wood. It's a wood veneer composite panel.
This one?
Yep, that's Prodema.
So this one here.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I can put it on the screen.
98% of the building is medium brown color. The two rounded corners where they kind of bend back from vertical, they leave these what we call cheek walls. And in the original approval, those were approved as a darker shade of brown. We're still keeping that on the street front, Daniel Penhallow, no changes. It's just on that back courtyard. Because it's a slightly different shape, they're much narrower. These tiny little triangular slivers. It's very difficult to do the same copper detailing and the boards. And they installed the regular medium color there that matches everything else, just to simplify it.
Okay.
Because the space is, it's literally only about 12 inches wide. It's difficult to work in there.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yep.
Okay, Nick.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Tracy. So we'll go to 41 Dearborn Street, which is a proposal for a condenser on the, I guess, the side of the building behind the porch, and a fence that's also off the side of the building at 90 degrees. So there's no proposed screening for this because the fence is already in existence. And I'm trying to see here where they've said any conduit will go. Has anybody seen that?
No, there's just a
Just the
no.
vent?
Red box.
There's a vent in
Yeah,
front
just the vent.
and the condenser behind, right?
This doesn't, it's not a mini split,
It's
so
a-
there
it's
may
a
not
compressor.
be conduit.
Oh,
Okay.
she has a point there.
Oh, there it is on the back. Yep. Yeah, so that's going to go right inside.
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
The air conditioner.
Nick, I would just have a stipulation that that fence must be maintained there.
Okay.
And do they say that they'll paint the vent?
No.
Okay.
Is that something?
Oh, it's on the brick.
No, that's the vent. The vent should be painted the
The vent
color.
should
of the- Oh, make that a second stipulation.
Okay, 2 stipulations.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, so number 3, 82 Congress. We looked at this, I believe, last month. We had an approval of this project under a public hearing with a condition stipulation that the transom windows on the side that they were proposing to replace with those panels come back for administrative approval with hopefully a better design that meets the
And I apologize, I had recused myself from that, so.
last time,
I should-
so you will again?
should.
Okay. So, anyone in the audience representing? You are. You might as well come up, given there was a fair bit of conversation about the panels and the opacity or
And there's a-
transparency of them.
A little confusion also because he's demonstrating 3 or 4 different types of glass here.
Mark?
Options.
Good evening, Mark Giannini from McHenry Architecture. In front of you, we're basically proposing three different options. We have basically clear glass, and we're just looking at the two transom windows that are on the side of the building, on the alley side of Chestnut Street. So the three options, the first one is just clear glass to match the larger picture frame window below. The tenant prefers this option of the three the most. They're really looking to increase the amount of natural light that's coming into the space, as well as have views out to the arch and the alleyway and the music hall. The other options we looked at were the frosted glass, which is what we had proposed at this last meeting last month, and I have samples of the frosted glass and also of option 3, which is textured glass. It's basically a ribbed textured, which I can bring up there to show you. And then in the second and third and fourth page, you'll see photographs of the frosted and the textured glass held up next to the existing glass block.
All right, makes sense to look at those, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Would any of these options have any dividers, muntins, or
Nope.
leaded?
So it would be a single pane of glass of these three options. We're trying to kind of have I shouldn't say similar. We're trying to complement the existing glass block that's there without trying to replicate it, because that's really impossible at this point. Those are like 3.5 by 3.5 inch glass blocks, which aren't manufactured anymore.
Would it be a single piece?
It would be a single piece, it would be insulated glass, ideally. So the piece that would be on the exterior would be one of those three options.
I would just say that the patterned glass, textured glass, would relate more to what's currently there. So if we're talking about options.
I would agree.
Option 3.
Yeah, the texture. So we need some opinions here.
I agree with Martin.
I'm on the same page.
Okay,
I think that's the closest to what exists. It doesn't replicate it, but
that's good.
Okay,
it's related.
4 out of 7 sounds good. So it's textured.
Okay,
Got it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
thanks, Mark. 245 Islington Street is the next item, and they are seeking approval for the replacement of 2 windows in kind. The reason they're here is because only 1 window is allowed under the exemption versus 2. So the size of the window isn't changing. The images are in just that little sheet with the photographs. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, come back to it if there are.
Yeah.
258 Maplewood. This is an applicant seeking to replace the non-code compliant balustrade on the back porch and put in a code compliant railing. So it is a different design.
Is it really seen from anywhere, though, is it?
No, it's back a house, but
Yeah, no, it's increasing the safety.
we good for now? Okay. 11 Walden, we put off to maybe the next month or when the BOA is done, and then 232 South is a project that was approved probably a year and a half ago by the commission. It was sold to a different applicant who has done the renovations on the house. Not particularly fast, but anyway, this was approved with shutters on the front of this house, and they would prefer to leave it the way it is and not put the shutters on. So, how do people feel about that?
I don't remember the house before it was done. I don't think it had shutters then either.
No, I don't think it did.
No. And as they've shown, nothing almost none of the houses around them have shutters either.
Most don't, yes.
Yeah, there's only one.
Those bay windows would be very difficult to
Yeah.
take care of with shutters also.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, people are okay with that?
that's it then.
Yes, that's it.
Great. So we have.
So I just have to, I can't vote on Congress Street.
Okay, so you're recusing
So
yourself.
take out 3, and we've got 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7, unless somebody else is out on anything. 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7.
Okay, and there were some
stipulations.
stipulations on what, Dearborn? What was?
Dearborn there were.
Yeah.
The paint
And,
prevent fence must remain.
yep, and another one. Sure, I wrote something down. Sorry.
I move we approve
Dearborn, and, sorry. I thought there was
those
one.
numbers with
Yeah, option
stipulations.
3 for the textured glass.
Option
Well,
3
but
for the
that's-
textured.
But I'm not, but I'm.
Oh, you're not voting on
I'm
that
not
one?
doing
Yeah.
that one yet, so.
All right, please, Dan. What'd you say?
I move we approve those administrative approvals minus the,
6.
with the stipulations minus the one that
Second?
Reagan's out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we should do 3.
Yep.
82 Congress Street
One stipulation.
without Reagan. So
Move to
Karen,
approve.
Jump in there.
Number 3.
On option 3, right?
Move to approve.
Yep. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, and Walden Street is put off until the zoning board of adjustment looks at it. Okey doke. So we have a little short discussion here, hopefully, of the Demolition Review Committee. This is not something that we're bringing up on our own. This is something that has come in front of the city council, and they're asking, they asked the planning board, and now they're asking us. So, Nick, would you
Sure.
like to run down what we could ask for?
Yep.
for the-
Does everybody have the original letter that was in your packet a couple of meetings ago? I thought I made a bunch of copies. Not seeing them here. I'm going to walk through it, but this was what was handed out, I think, a month ago. It's the letter that was sent to the planning board from the planning director. So just as an overview for any of you that aren't aware, we have a demolition review ordinance, and as a result, we have a demolition review committee. And the committee's made up of 5 members. One of them is from the HDC, that's John at this point.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but currently John sits as a member. I sit for the planning director. The building inspector, chief building inspector sits for himself. And we have a member of the Historical Society, which has been Barbara Ward to date. And we have somebody from the planning board, which has been Beth Moreau, who's counselor, city councilor now. She can still sit because I think she's still on the planning board. But anyway, that's the committee and the 5 people that are on it. We generally meet, it's as needed. I'd say we meet generally once a year, depending on the frequency of applications. And the purpose of the committee is to review demolition applications outside the historic district that have not gone to the Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board for some kind of major alteration that's required a public hearing with notice to abutters, and it's obviously outside the district. So buildings currently now have to be over 50 years to even trigger this ordinance. And property owners that are outside the district that trigger the ordinance are required for the first 30 days to have a sign up on the property and a publication in the newspaper announcing that they are going to do some demolition. And the demolition is defined as basically anything of substance on the structure. And the building department, the inspection department, is the lead administrator of this ordinance. So then they contact planning on the other end of the double doors, and we coordinate with them on putting up the sign with the applicant, making sure the legal ad is reviewed before it's published to make sure it's correct, because all this affects the dates involved with the ordinance itself. It's essentially a 90-day demolition delay ordinance, which is really proven to be short. And the reason it's short is that 30 days is burned just having a sign up. So you're already down to 60. If somebody objects from anywhere in the community, they have to write a letter to the building inspector objecting to the demolition. The building inspector then has 15 days to notify our committee that there's been an objection filed. So we burned another 15 days. That's halfway through the 90, and we just found out about it. And then we need to schedule a public hearing, which takes at least another 15 days, because we have to post an ad for that. And it's usually 21 days before we all get our calendars set and hold the meeting. So we're well into our 50s on the 90-day potential delay, and that's the outside limit, before we even have a hearing to have a discussion about, first thing, whether the resource being demolished is historically significant or architecturally or culturally significant. Those are our sort of cultural, architectural, and environmental significance. So as a member of a five-person board, we make a decision on whether the structure that's being proposed to be significantly altered or demolished is worthy of preservation. Again, we're outside the historic district. If we determine that it is worthy, like the school at the parish hall or the Carey Cottage, they're obvious candidates of being historically significant, then we trigger our second meeting, which has to be also noticed, to talk about alternatives to demolition. And usually we've found when we're having that second conversation, we've got like 10 days left on the 90. So it makes it really a bit of a comedy, because all we could do outside of having a forum to gripe about it is tell the applicant, gee, you got to wait till next Friday, because that's what we're going to do to hold you up. So, and the butters are not notified in any of these meetings, which was another, we felt, shortcoming, at least immediate abutters. No, unless they saw the sign, they wouldn't even know it, or the ad in the paper, which who's going to see that these days. We felt like the two major shortcomings, and one's bigger than the other, was the duration of the delay period being far too short for us to be able to do anything useful, which, you bring in a neighborhood to talk about something like the Carey Cottage, and then you got to tell them, we have 3 days left in the 90. It doesn't make people feel good that have taken time out of their day to show up. Like, what kind of ordinance is that? So it's better than nothing, but not much. And some people would argue it's worse than something, because you're giving people false expectations. It's actually got some usefulness beyond just sitting around the campfire complaining about the demolition. So we felt like the duration was too short, and it needed to be lengthened, not an absurd amount, but enough that it would be at least a level playing field with the person at the podium. And then secondarily, we felt like there should be some notice to abutters, at least at the onset, so we can hear what they think. So we were asked by the City Council 2 years ago, almost 2 years, to take a look at the ordinance and recommend some suggested improvements to improve its effectiveness. So I went over the two main ones that we came out of the committee with: extending the potential delay period. And it doesn't mean everybody's delayed a longer period or 90 days. It just means we have a little more teeth on our side to have a conversation with somebody at the podium about saving something like the Carey Cottage without having a gun to our heads that we have less than 10 days to throw at it. I will say there are a number of exemptions that we put in this ordinance after it's been revised once before, 2018, and we clarified what has to come before this committee, because we didn't want to see every chimney removal, every shed. So we didn't want to see projects that went to the planning board or the BOA for a public hearing, where people were noticed and they knew, and demolition was clearly part of the application. So we put all that in there in 2018, so we didn't have an abundance of applications coming in at us. And we've defined what a partial demolition is. And
So what's the
thresholds.
extension, Nick?
Well, the extension we had talked about in 2021 at the committee was that we'd like to get closer to 180 days to be able to double it, 6 months. And I think where the legal departments looked at this, and then it went to the planning board for their input. I don't think the planning board had anything to add to what I'm calling it the DRC, the Demolition Review Committee, John, myself, Beth, Barbara, and Shanti came up with. But I think the legal department would prefer to have it still be a 90-day delay period, but not start it at the very beginning. Only start the 90 days from the hearing, which gets us closer to 130 to 140, depending on when the hearing's scheduled, which seems like a good compromise in there. And the reason they're suggesting that's a better way to skin that cat is to protect ourselves as a community under the state statute to, in fact, preserve historic structures outside of a locally adopted historic district. Because that's kind of what we're doing, trying to preserve structures. But unlike you folks, we can't prohibit even if it's 180 days. It's not a prohibition. It's simply a delay. You guys have the ability here, as you know, to prevent somebody from demolishing something because it's in a local historic district. So it's certainly a lot weaker, but it's not very helpful to have it 90 days. And I think if we were to move the 90 from when the sign is given to the applicant to when the public hearing is scheduled, usually 45 to 50 days later, we gain that on the backside, and that's a reasonable amount of time to tell the person standing there in a hearing, hey, we still have like 40 days, 50 days to work with here. Can you work with us? Is there a way we can avoid demolishing this building, or is there a way we can move it? And you obviously are going to have a different conversation with 40 or 50 days than 5.
Could I jump in?
Yeah, I'm done. You asked.
Okay, the first meeting is a public meeting. And by that is, everyone is allowed to speak at this first meeting coming in, the neighbors, and I didn't realize that they weren't notified. Bad, I'm bad. But that's the way that we structured it before, and that was usually the longest meeting with the people, the applicants would tell why they can't work with the structure or want it gone or whatever and such, and then people would come up and speak. And the second meeting, normally, I believe that it wasn't a public meeting, it was just between the committee and the owners to hash out what was spoken. I think that's how we did it.
There's no rule of thumb.
There is no.
I'm not sure we didn't with the Cary Cottage take input to the bitter end, but.
Yeah, and then the last meeting, of course, is a decision made. So, yes, it's relatively toothless. However, it gives everyone in the city, for that matter, but everyone in the neighborhood, a chance to speak about a structure that's going to be torn down. And that's something that didn't exist before. And that is a very important thing. On, unfortunately, St. Patrick's School, it didn't work. Everyone tried. There were a number of meetings that, and to their benefit, they did not push us at all. They allowed us to have a number of different plans, but none of them were accepted. But on Cary Cottage, we did it. So if everyone can remember, Cary Cottage was very close to being torn down. But having that meeting with the, what was it, New Hampshire Forestry, who owns the building?
That's right.
Yep. Having the representative from the Forestry Association, et cetera, and having 50 people, speaking, I think it really did have an effect. And they decided to put off the demolition and look for other uses for the property, which they found, which is great. And so I'm very happy with that. But I'm hoping that you all are in agreement that we can use what Nick was talking about, which is 90 days from the moment that sign is put out. And I would also add that it's been very casual as of late. I think it had something to do with changing the building inspectors or whatever, but Woodbury Avenue is sitting up there by the Holiday Inn. I have yet to see a sign on that. And all I read in the paper is it's going to be torn down. 11 units are going in there,
So that,
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I'd like to speak to that, because one thing that's troubled me about
No sign.
about the exemption in 2018, that's number 1 on the sheet, and you guys may not have it in front of you, but it's in the ordinance, is The demolition of a building or structure that's been granted a certificate of approval by the HDC or has been approved for demolition in association with a project following a public hearing, either by the planning board or the Board of Adjustment, is exempt. I would suggest, if we're going to contribute anything back to the city council, that we strike the planning board and the BOA, because I would also argue that the parish, St. Patrick's Parish Hall, which is a great building, technically, as a result of this amendment, didn't even need to come to the Demolition Review Committee because it had a public hearing for the site plan at the planning board. And I think it doesn't make sense. We didn't intend to create back doors when we made this amendment to allow people like the Woodbury house that he's just mentioned, go to the planning board for a subdivision to put 8 houses in there, have a public hearing, and then point to this exemption so we don't have a public process. I think we got lucky at the church that the amendment had not gone through until after they had filed. They were aware that it went through and talked to us. So I think that should be removed moving forward, so we have that process.
Oh. Yes, David?
Will any of this conversation be useful to help do something about at least the rumor that I've heard about the old brick school building on Woodbury?
Yes, it would help. I know that the owner of that is moving pretty fast to remove that schoolhouse, which is really unfortunate. I've been through it 2 or 3 times over the last 10 years, and I think it's demolition by neglect. But they are going to have to follow, unless they are at the planning board and the Conservation Commission, they need a wetland permit to tear it down, so they file for a conditional use permit, and that will involve a public hearing at the planning board. So that may be our first example of somebody other than Woodbury, which isn't done yet, getting around the ordinance through the public hearing from a board that's really not charged or necessarily interested in historic preservation. So it's another good example of why we got to get rid of the BOA planning board exemption, because it's not really appropriate.
And I agree with that, because unless it's a well-known property, the only people who would be aware that something might have intend to be demolished is the abutters.
And in that case, there are very few, abutters. So, there are going to be stranded, orphaned historic resources that don't either have good things around them from a historic preservation standpoint, or they're very isolated. So I think those are great examples, Woodbury, and that's on Commerce Way or whatever, that we strike.
We've got to put this thing through.
Yeah.
I think it's got to go in.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Nick, may I say something?
Yes.
With all due respect, to me, it almost seems like just prolonging the agony to extend these deadlines. And has there ever been any discussion about a second kind of overlay, citywide overlay, for structures of a certain age, where they're required to exhaust many more stringent requirements?
Yes, and I think that's an excellent question. I think it's a much heavier lift, and it's something we should probably talk about after this gets moving back to the council, to at least be a loosely fit belt when we need something better. I think, we could, the only surefire way to protect things like Frank Jones's house and Woodbury, the schoolhouse, and things that are outside the district, is to have those within the historic district, even as isolated pockets. But you've got to do the survey, you have to do the homework, you have to have them adopted. And we have to make sure we don't bite off more than we can chew here, but I think it would be pretty easy for most people to come up with 10 or 15 or 20 structures that are obvious candidates that are not in the district, if not 200, but at least go with the top shelf items, the focal buildings that are out there, like St. Patrick's, and have those, or even the Catholic Church right beside it. Those are not in the district, and they're amazing buildings. There's obviously hundreds, in my mind, in my eyes, hundreds of buildings that would be worthy of this. But
South Street, you could just go around and just point out buildings. But I seem to remember when we started this whole thing that Attorney Sullivan said that it couldn't work because of the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
Which couldn't work.
We couldn't expand, we can't do spot zoning, we can't say, well, this is the historic district right here, and a little chunk is historic. I thought that he said that.
I don't think that's Correct. There may be issues with, one building all by itself, but I'm not even certain of that. I mean, you can go across New Hampshire, and there's some pretty small historic districts that are isolated from one another in a community. So I can look into that and see if
Somebody's
there's...
got to look into it.
Yeah, but it's certainly a bigger endeavor. It's a much better outcome. But we also need to make sure we can handle the volume of all these the historic district could clearly double in volume quite easily, given the quality of what's already in it. And we probably couldn't handle that, given we already have 20 to 30 items a month now. We'd have to think about all that. But we don't have to get it all.
No, and the way it's if you could legislate it somehow, that you're going to keep people out of the process just by the fact that you've got a law in place. I know that's really pie in the sky thinking, but
Yeah, I mean, New Hampshire is protection of property rights.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think this is going to be better, even though it'll make it workable instead of unworkable. I do feel like John's not wrong with the Kerry Cottage, but honestly, I have no idea how much we contributed to that. Nobody really knows. It was obviously a public forum, but most of the time it's like going to a wake. So there's just no,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So what do
And
you
one last
take away from this, Nick? What are we going to do?
One last question. So this is actually our only way to control any changes outside the HDC of any historic building.
Correct.
This is
Which is
Any
pretty
bill.
non-existent.
over
And
50
it's
years.
minimal.
And we're also recommending, if you don't remember, we did this a couple of years ago, we're recommending it go to 75 years instead of 50. So
Why is that?
Why? There's not much 50 to 75 that a lot of us are in love with, and we've got to manage the volume.
50 years is 1972.
I mean, the McIntyre.
Well-
I remember 1970.
That's 50 years, just so everyone is aware, is the cutoff for National Register eligibility. So a 50-year-old house could be, or building or structure, bridge, whatever, has the ability to be
Right.
on the National Register.
And I would just argue, I think our grandparents that put that law into effect would have expected us to do something with it by now, given what was going on in the 70s in the entire country on multitude of levels. It's time to revisit that. But that's what we were trying to do, is
Okay.
move it to 75. So that doesn't have to happen, but that's what we're...
Okay. Is there anybody else want to speak on this?
I think we have a lot of background. What is the question? We're going to vote to whether we
Support
go
the
with this big
recommendations
plan?
of the, as discussed, and I'm suggesting we add a suggestion that we remove the exemption for projects that exclusively go before the planning board and the Board of Adjustment from being exempt from the committee's review.
Okay, do we all
I'll agree to
understand
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I move that we recommend the DRC's revisions along with the removal of the exemption of the planning board,
And the BOA.
BOA.
Second. All righty. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Board says aye. No one against? Okay, we'll move on. Public hearings, old business. Petition of 1 Rains Avenue LLC, 31 Rains Avenue LLC, 203 Maplewood Avenue LLC owners for property located at 1 Rains Avenue, 31 Rains Avenue, and 203 Maplewood Avenue, wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of a 5-story mixed-use building and a 5-story hotel as per plans on file in the planning department. Said properties are shown on Assessor Map 123, Lot 14, Map 123, Lot 13, and Map 123, Lot 12. And they lie within Character District 4 and the Historic Districts. And who's here to present this?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Evan Tormey. I've seen most of you a number of times before. I'm representing the applicant, North Mill Pond Holdings. Appreciate your time this evening. We appreciate also all the work the Commission has done to this point on this project, a project that we're very excited to be presenting for public hearing after, I think, 9 work sessions. This project is very exciting in that it will provide continued growth and vibrancy to the north end in the form of 2 new buildings that will complement the other recently constructed and approved buildings in the neighborhood. There's also improvements to the streetscape, including wide sidewalks to enhance pedestrian and vehicular safety, and well-thought-out landscaping, hardscaped areas with seating, and ample space for outdoor dining that will make the street front not only safe but inviting to pedestrians and make this neighborhood more livable, exciting, and vibrant. This project also provides over half an acre of community space for the public to use and enjoy along the North Mill Pond, including a multi-use path that will connect Maplewood Avenue to the soon-to-be-constructed North Mill Pond Community Park, and will serve as a key piece in the overall North Mill Pond Greenway Trail connecting Bartlett Street to Market Street. This Greenway multi-use path, as well as the other community space improvements, including the rehabilitation of the pier and the kayak launch, will provide public access to the North Mill Pond waterfront where none has existed for years. The water quality of the North Mill Pond has been a serious concern for years as well, and this project will address stormwater runoff from this site and city streets in the surrounding neighborhood and significantly improve the quality of stormwater discharge into the North Mill Pond. So again, thank you for your time. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Carla Goodnight.
Good evening, Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects. I'm happy to be bringing this before you for approval as well. And I know we had a lot of discussions about architectural style and about massing and the fact that it's a significant project with 2 buildings on the site. So I know that you all see many, many projects every month and throughout the year. So I'm going to very quickly sort of run through some of our process and then present the pages, much of which you've seen in prior work sessions. So I'll try to move through those relatively quickly. But for the benefit of the public, I just want to sort of recap how we arrived at this this solution and where we are now. So the building footprints were laid out on the site as 2 separate buildings and defined by their use, and they had a significant amount of surface parking in the beginning. The applicant made a commitment right up front to pull all the structures out of the 100-foot buffer. And based on events, recent events and things unfolding, I think that the decision just gets better and better. It also gave them the ability to release the real estate near the water and provide the link to continue the 1-acre park legacy, which is a half of an acre under their control now, to develop and bring forward. As the work session process moved forward, the massing was 5 stories with a 1-story mass on Maplewood, and the hotel was also 5 stories. As we moved into work session 3, the 5th floor of the mixed-use building was actually reduced to a penthouse. So we went from 5 full stories to 4 with a penthouse in work session 3. And then surface parking was also reduced at that time to be significantly located under the buildings wherever possible. And Eben's team went out and found this great puzzle lift parking scenario strategy to double lift parking and under the building. At that point, we began discussing inspiration images for building styles, whether the buildings should be the same style, whether the hotel should have its own identity, and the mixed use take on another look entirely. And we worked through that quite a bit through work sessions 4 and work session 5. And we, I believe, also removed a little bit more off of the hotel during that time. And we also were encouraged in work session 5 that the 1-story piece along Maplewood was considered to be weak and not really have enough presence. So that area kind of bulked out and became a nice sort of three-story piece as you come along, which is nice, which is a good scale for that street frontage. At that point, when we moved into work session 6, the board, I think, became a little bit split on what the style should be. And we did adopt a traditional style for the mixed-use building, and then a somewhat more modern style for the hotel. And then as I look at the first page, the cover sheet of the presentation, and I look at, you know, some of the architecture in the area, if you can flip back one, Nick. Am I looking at this? Why don't I?
One more?
No, hold on.
Is this where you want to be?
There's my pointer. Back one, front
Back
cover
one.
page. Yep. So just looking at the buildings, this is a very wide thing. We do have several modern, the hotel is very modern. The 145 is not what I would call very traditional. And so a lot of these buildings, if you really look in this area, are not that traditional, with the exception of the mixed use and some aspects of Vaughn Street potentially in this block right here. So we settled on a traditional look for that building, and we also added massing elements, and we started working on the entries because the board was expressed that our entries were weak and we needed to move some architecture forward, ideas for entry development. And then as we continued in the last few sessions, we really sharpened up the entry canopies, and we had a bunch of, a group of people working on all of these different design aspects, because this is a large undertaking. So we brought a lot of ideas to the table and brought forward these hotel and mixed-use canopies on 1.0. If you flip to 1.0. So we've highlighted some of these elements here because they're not as easy to see in the renderings, but we have Maplewood Rains and hotel canopy across the top, and then the top views looking down of them directly below. Moving on to 1.1 is the final iteration of the three-story massing wrapping around the building with a lighter penthouse and step-back areas above in residential, creating some activated plazas as well right along Maplewood. And then 1.2, a bird's eye view of that, more of an aerial perspective of the planned look for that building with traditional banding and sills and lintels and cornice. And 1.3, moving along down Rains Ave toward the hotel, where we switched to a more metal-clad style, not such a clapboard brick style, but a metal and a more tan brick or different textured brick. Here we have the diamond metal pattern. If you move to 1.4, we introduced a diamond pattern on the main entry just above the glass canopy, which has a separate design from the others. We did carry some banding around the bottom, but we also lightened up the top floor. And 1.5, from this view, we have vertical elements still breaking up the mass, and we have a very much lighter top floor element. Looking at 1.6, you can get a better view of what's intended for the cornice and the details here, as well as the windows. And there's a base detail on the bricks that you can see in the detail sheets that modulates in and out to create texture at pedestrian level. And then on 1.7, the view of both buildings in the different styles from across the water, and of course in the foreground, the dock and the park that Evan spoke of earlier. So I will move quickly through through some of these. 2.1, 2.0 shows the covered parking that was introduced into the building that has two-story lift parking. Then the residential floor above for 2 floors. When you get to the 3rd floor, or the 4th floor plan, sorry, you can see that we're stepping way back from Maplewood, and we're stepping back around towards the water. And then, of course, the penthouse plan pulls way back on all sides, and the roof plan for reference with mechanicals and so forth located as centrally as possible to stay out of view. And then the 2.6 series satisfies the details and requirements for exactly where all the materials are and what all the details are. So running through 2.7, 8, and 9 is all of the dimensioned elevations for reference exactly the size of everything. Moving on to 212, we have sections through residential to again give you another perspective of how that comes together. And then on 213, the details are further keyed, and either Evan or I can speak to any detail that you may have a question on, depending on the location. 214 is more of the same, and then 215 starts to illustrate the precast and the sills and lintels and so forth. That continues through 216 and 217. And then as you get into 218 and those pages, I would refer you back to the beginning where you could get a better look at the renderings that we provided of these covered areas.
Carla, could I just ask a question? Is this wood construction on a platform, or is this a steel-framed building?
I believe it's wood on a platform, yes. Yes, the first floor is steel. So moving on to 219 is aluminum storefront. 2.20 shows brick returns. And then we begin the detailed group of hotel drawings, which 3.0 shows parking under and drive-through under the first floor of the hotel. 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 show the normal hotel floor levels. And then on 3.4, you can see the roof deck that was introduced water side to bring that elevation down 1 story as it faces the pond. And then the rooftop mechanicals have been located for review as well, and they're all pulled way back from the edge and minimizing the views of those of that equipment. And 3.6 further details the diamond patterns and the proposed materials.
You've just went through about 50 pages, thank you.
Okay. What would you like to?
The one thing I'm not noticing on the rooftop at all, you've got your mechanicals, et cetera, but you haven't thought about the ability to put any solar panels at all up on this roof. Is this something you're considering?
I believe
in the
it's
future?
solar ready, so, it structurally would be designed to accept that potentially. I think that's what we discussed. Right.
I mean, the hotel, all kinds of, I mean, you could put a garden up there, too. It just, in 2022, it just seems a shame to build a structure downtown with nothing, a flat roof, when there's so much that could be used for. Thank you. Has anybody got any other questions? Because she just whipped through all the windows and doors and everything.
I haven't gotten to the materials yet, so.
But the garage door style windows, where are those?
which are we
Are they on
speaking?
Maplewood Avenue? That was way back.
Oh, that's storefront. In the, you mean on, some of it is storefront, but I can, I'm not sure where you're. Where's he asking?
Story thing on Maplewood.
Oh, is it, all right.
That storefront is open, like an upward opening garage door to allow that first floor to open up to
Yeah,
the patio outside.
how many openings do that?
Yeah, I've got it on, I think it's on the floor plan.
Yeah, well, it's also on the elevations.
Right.
There's the one facing the pond. So if you're on 2
You've got to get closer to the microphone
Sorry.
or pick up the microphone.
if you're on 2.7, you've got on the left side in the number 2, there's the upward acting storefront style garage doors. Same thing to the right of the entry there. And then the one, the elevation on the right as well, that area. So sort of where it's broken up into smaller glazing, those are those upward acting storefront doors, also on 2.8 on the bottom right.
Appendix.
Was that 3 or 4?
Four.
4
Four
openings.
storefront openings, yep. And that's sort of on that retail space facing Maplewood there and also the pond.
Okay.
Anybody else want to jump in while there's a pause? Okay, keep going, Carla.
Okay. Here we go. I was on, getting to the hotel elevations. I think we're on the 3.8 potentially. Where were we? So I was looking for the 3.6. Okay. All right, on 3.6 and 3.7, you can see the detail on the brick reveal and how that texture will be carried around the base. And 3.8 shows the drive-under area or the open area. 3.9, also the key plan is on your upper right, if that makes it easier for you to follow around where we are on that end facing the pond and where we've introduced screening and open to beyond on that corner. And then coming back around on the corner that is abutting 3S, you can see that we have some glazing into the interior. And then another section to help sort of understand the vertical relationships. And then a number of sections outlining the stairwells and the entries and overhangs and some of the banding and details present on 312 and 313. And then on 14, the dimensional design intent of all of the cornice and banding details in the metal that were presented and what these metal components will be. And then further details on 15 and 16. And then on 17, we begin to look at the individual window and door units. And then, again, onto the entries that I had modeled in, on the first page that have better sort of rendering quality images of those overhangs. And,
About this diamond pattern metal?
yeah,
So on, on 3.15 and stuff, I assume maybe you've got it pointed out later on in the project here, but I can't see it. I don't see, I mean, I see very faint lines, so this is,
it's a subtle texture. It's different pieces, but it is, it's a subtle.
is it separate pieces of metal joined onto each other, so to speak? Like an old
Right.
shingled roof in the
Looking.
past?
where on the beginning here.
Or is it one big piece of metal that has this embossed on it?
You can see it on 1.0 pretty closely where we've zoomed into the entries.
Yeah,
So-
it is individual pieces,
Right.
sort of those diamonds, and then those are linked together. It's not one big piece where you have like
They
some sort of
interlock.
pattern.
They interlock.
And it's dark colored,
Charcoal.
charcoal, yeah.
Right. We do have samples of things as well, if that's, we can look at them at the table or pass them around. All right, lost my place again. On 3.19, you can get a closer look at the brick reveal detail. And then on 4.0, we have all of the brick colors that we're looking at for both the main brick and accent brick on each of the projects, or each of the buildings. And then several aluminum colors for the perforated aluminum panel, Vitribond, Alucobond, Vitribond, very similar. And we're using all of these colors, and those are outlined on the elevations. The locations of those are outlined on the elevations and noted. We're using Marvin Essential ebony windows and Marvin Essential ebony doors. There had been some comments about using using fiberglass windows, and I see that we have changed. I mean, we were looking at not using Marvin for the hotel, but in our final presentation here, we have moved to using Marvin. So the hotel will be fiberglass Marvin Essentials instead of a PVC material,
Vinyl.
instead of a vinyl, because I know you were concerned about that. And we have the storefront is Conair aluminum, and then we have the balcony railing of this perforated metal, and we have a close-up of the rendering, but we also have the details. And then cast stone and the intended siding on 4.4. And then we have some light fixtures, which are also indicated on the elevations for their locations. And then we just have some additional puzzle parking systems and some things in the appendix if we would like to refer to them as we discuss or can answer any questions. So.
Yes, Reagan.
I have a question going back to the very beginning and our last discussion, speaking of demolition. This is proposing to demolish several buildings. And so I was wondering what your plans were for documenting any of these buildings before you demolish them.
To that, I think, what you're planning on doing to document the 3 buildings that are currently on site.
We don't have any specific plans, but we certainly could incorporate some documentation of those. I know, Reagan, you mentioned previously the 2-story building, which I think is 31 Rains Avenue, had some interesting historical or time period details that you thought should be documented. So
Right.
certainly we could do that.
That'd be great. I mean, the Cindy cleaners, the cleaning was originally one of the a very early automobile repair shop and gas station and everything. So, and even the big gym building, I mean, I just think that it should start to become regular for us to, no matter what the building is, even if the building's 20 years old, to have good photo documentation. If any drawings or anything exists that you have, that all of that be done and given to the Athenaeum, copies of it given to the Athenaeum and also to the city.
Well, how about
to
the
have on
city,
file.
the poor Athenaeum?
So the
their
Athenaeum
hands
can
full.
handle it, and especially if they're all digital, that's fine. So I think that would be
Yeah, in our research, I think they have a lot better photos because they're taken when those buildings were more in their prime. Certainly the Cindy Ann Cleaners building and the 31 Reigns, but certainly we can document what they look like at this time.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to turn over. I know we have some plans for at least the addition that was done at 1 Reigns Avenue when it went from being a 1-story building to a 3-story building.
Okay. That would be great. So if we could have that as a
That'll be a
stipulation.
stipulation that you'll,
Thank you.
okay. Anyone else over here want to jump in with some questions, comments? Logan, Rich? David? I'm going to open it up to the public. Okay. So if anybody in the public would like to speak about these 2 buildings on 3 lots, please come up. Identify yourself. Speak into the microphone.
Good evening, Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I'm a little surprised that we're moving to approval. I thought last meeting, which was postponed, was going to be a work session, so I'm really shocked. But I will move on to read you what I sent you last time, which I didn't see moved forward. It seemed, can you bring up Plan 1.3? It seems to be that the renderings that were presented are a little further back than the ones that were in July, and the change of the view does not change the fact that for the last 3 meetings, members of this board have repeatedly asked that the entrances and canopies be bolder, more detailed, and have some signature features that be added. The only noticeable change are the green rooftop cornices have been added to the hotel, and it seems the color of the brick is a little less pink. The large store windows on Plan 1.3 have shadows on them that make them appear to be recessed from the building, but looking more closely, you can see that they're really flush to the outside of the wall. It seems to me that it might be worth trying to make them a little bit recessed because it looks like one giant wall of glass there. Upon reviewing and comparing the July and August entrances, they look a lot like something that you would see at a local movie theater. It's lots of glass, especially the hotel entrance. These are huge buildings. Perhaps some wood, metalwork, or brick with some 3-dimensional designs could be added to the entrance doors. And if you got the letter in July, which I'm sure you all remember reading, I gave some examples of entrance doors that actually have a little bit of character. I can pass it around. The brick cornice on the hotel seems to have a little more design elements than the flat cornice with the gray strip, which is on the regular building. Could the cornice be a little rounded, or a row of flat bricks on the top, or gray lines and some thick lines, just to give it a little more something? Why isn't the Maple Street cornice as high as the one on the North Mill Pond side or the Rains Ave side? How about the fiberglass, polyurethane, or some synthetic stone crown molding where the cornice is? As has been stated at the last 3 meetings, skipping the one that we just postponed. These are very large buildings, and they need something to make them pop. Maybe the windows could have 6-pane grids or a little more trim around them. The top of the hotel could use something across the top, slightly thinner green panels, or continue that diamond panel. I feel strongly that the reason that 9 meetings have transpired is because on the normal meeting, maybe one small change was presented. So to me, I don't think the 9 meetings were really 9 meetings, because I've been to a lot of these meetings, as you all know, and often developers present 2 or 3 changes, sometimes complete changes. It's very shocking sometimes. But this particular development has made one small change, which every single meeting has had one tiny change, in my opinion. And I think that's why they had 9, and that's why I think you should wait for approval, to at least see something that you had specifically asked for, which you all of you could agree on the fact that you asked for the canopies to be bolder, more detailed, and have some signature features. What I see when I look at the bottom, which is where I'm going to be standing, I am not going to be standing back here on the top of 3S says building, because that's where you're standing for this view. I'm going to be standing in front of those glass windows, those plain glass windows, and on the front side, it's the same thing. And I would caution you very much to not allow the doors that open on the North Mill Pond side, because the sound reflects off the North Mill Pond in a way that is unconceivable until you live across the North Mill Pond from one of those doors. So both Liar's Bench and Great Rhythm have those doors. And the people who lived across the street for them complained to the city enforcement officer for months on end to keep the sound level low enough so that the people across the pond, you can hear everything. Even if they're just talking in front of the pond, they can be heard. So I would caution you not to allow them on the pond side. Thank you.
Good for her.
Okay, is there anyone else out there that would like to make a comment? Would anyone on the board like to talk about what she brought up at all? Oh, yeah,
Speak this.
certainly.
I have to agree with some of the comments from our public speaker. It does feel like a meeting, you throw a subpoena here and there based on our previous comments. And to support this, I asked for more articulation, more architecture, and I don't think I've received it. So I don't think I can support this. I can live with the massing, I can live with some of that based on the fact that you do have to pull it out from the 100-foot buffer, and you're kind of trapped, your hands are tied there. But I've been asking for some more articulation, more architecture, and I just don't feel like I've received it. So.
I'll say something. May I?
You may speak until, I don't know if Nick informed you of this, but as soon as I close this public hearing, and from that point on, you can't speak unless
Right.
you're voting.
So can I speak now?
Certainly.
So I might get fired my first day, but I have to say I'm coming in, this is well down the path, and a lot has been done, but from my perspective, fire me if you need to. For a project of this size, to have it be so mundane and uninteresting architecturally, I wouldn't want to be living on McDonough Street and have to look at that. And I don't think that it should be approved at this point. And you can let me know if you want me back next time.
Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with some of the comments that have been made. We have asked during the work sessions for more architecture, especially with the buildings of this mass. I think it just makes the architecture that much more important. When you look at sheet 1.5, it really stands out to me that on the left you have a staggered, and I understand the 100-foot setback from the wetland. But you just see this wall that we are putting there that does not exist anywhere else. We have nice stagger to the left there, at I believe that's the Sheridan, and the 3S, and residential homes to the right. I just don't feel that architecture is significant enough to support such massing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Should we go to the vote where we can talk about whether or not if and how we're supporting this?
Okay, certainly. Would somebody like to make a motion?
We have to
Do you want
close.
to give the applicant an opportunity to say anything in case they want to ask for a continuance? Rather than get jammed up in maybe a bad outcome?
Did you hear that?
No? Yeah, you have to go up there if you're going to say anything. Otherwise, nod your head. No.
So, obviously, I'm not prepared with remarks for these comments at this time. And I know that the board has struggled with hotel architecture because of the rhythm of the rooms and so forth. And, you know, that it appears, I think that the board, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think you may be divided on the mixed-use building, whether or not traditional details are or are not appropriate on that structure. But I think, you know, there may be a little bit more concern for the hotel structure, but it's a use that requires a certain facade development. So I would say that the design that we have now differs significantly from what was presented before I joined the team, and these guys had both buildings looking the same, and both of them looking not, you know, looking nothing like either one of these buildings look now. So I don't really have an image of work session one, but they were significantly different buildings. So there has been a design shift, I guess, for consideration. So.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to close the public hearing somehow here. And I'm looking for a motion. And please support your motion. And we'll have comments from everybody if they want to. This is a major project, and it deserves this.
I guess for clarity, one would ask, can you make a motion to continue? Because
Does it
It's-
have to be asked for? or-
Yeah, it's a motion.
Okay, because part of my problem that convinced me that we're lacking architecture and that we're lacking
Could you define
articulation.
architecture? When you say
Well, I'm doing that right now.
lacking architecture.
If you look at sheet 215 and you see details that are fairly simple, they go up, they go across, they go up, they go across, they go up, they go back.
What sheet?
And that's your cornice, 2.15.
1.5, okay.
I would hope for a little bit more. I would hope for a little more articulation, a little more interest, something a little more special for such a building.
This is from the.
You know, some of the banding's just very simple, very
All right.
uninspiring.
Oh, here it is. It comes out.
So, if, I think that a motion to continue would be something I would offer, but nothing more than that. And that's for just discussion. I'm not making a motion. Can we do that?
Make a motion, and if it's seconded, then you.
But something we used to do would say a motion to approve for discussion. And
Okay.
that would open up the discussion anyways.
Well, then I'll make a motion to, for a continuance for discussion.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion on the floor, and Nick has told me that that would put it back into work sessions. Is that what that would do?
No, would
What are we
simply
doing?
continue the public hearing. You're motioning to continue the public hearing and giving them an opportunity, if I understand what you said, to come back with some revisions.
Please.
And you would presumably at the next meeting take up those, or whenever they're back, take up those revisions. If you have a motion to approve and it's seconded, then the vote is on approval. And if it's not passed, then the applicant's out of luck. So it sounds like that's not what you're asking for. You're asking for a motion to continue the public hearing to another meeting for the applicant to address the concerns you and others have raised, correct? Right, yeah.
So we've had the motion, we've had a second. Is there any other discussion on this? I feel that somebody else might want to make some discussion. Rich?
I feel there's no harm in continuing this, giving the applicant another chance to, make some corrections or make some adjustments, improve the architecture.
Yes, Dan?
I think we've had, excuse me, 9 work sessions. We've had 9 different requests. And I don't think we ever got anything that's made any of us really happy. We've certainly seen some changes that are acceptable. This is hard because it's not historic and it's all big buildings, but it's still the #1 building you're going to see right on the water coming across. So I think we should either get out of the kitchen or vote it up or down.
I have trouble with those type of statements also. Yes, Reagan?
I can support the continuance, but I don't know, the changes in the design would have to be drastically different. And this has been my constant comment in this. I think there are a lot of parts of this project that are very positive. The green space, the massing, the fact that you're, have minimal parking. There are plenty of things that are really positive about this project. But for me, consistently, the architecture, the design has been very underwhelming. And I think again, there's not a lot to take from in terms of context, but I feel like these buildings mirror more of the Port Walk buildings than some of the newer construction nearby. And I'm not sure that Port Walk is really the highest level of quality that we want to be using for context for these buildings.
Okay. David?
In my little attempt at understanding this building of this scale, which I'm not really qualified for, I feel like I'm part of the problem that many of you are having, in that I was pushing to have separate windows because I thought that the buildings might have more sense of texture with separate windows than walls of glass. I was sort of pleased with the idea of breaking the buildings into a little bit of vertical columns with spaces, so to speak, in between them, in a way almost reminiscent of the row buildings that much of our town, Bricktown, is made from. I never found comfort in any of the earlier designs that had things that maybe Mr. Ryan liked more. But as things developed, I didn't feel inspired by any of it, but I felt more comfortable. Pardon me, I did. And I guess maybe that's part of the problem, that it doesn't have any of the edginess that a modern building should have. I can see where this is all going, I think. It does look an awful lot like we've just been moving the pile of shoeboxes around for quite some time, never doing much more than that. The applicant did, as far as I think, a good part of the process of making better entrances to the building over time. I think those improved. I think recognizing the building's presence on Maplewood Avenue was an improvement. I think many parts of this were improvements. Nowhere in it did it answer any of the ramping up from the waterfront or giving a sense of arc to it or anything like that. There's certainly nothing inspiring. I was willing to vote positively for this, and I mean, if you need that to happen, I will. But I've never been really happy, but I don't have any ability to articulate it as well as Mr. Ryan does.
Okay. So we have a motion and to continue. So I say that we vote on this. So I'm going to ask for a roll call. Dan?
Just to understand, to continue simply means we'll either go to another public hearing or a work session.
We're in a public hearing
All
now,
right.
Continue the public hearing.
and the public hearing will continue.
They can either they'll come back again.
Did we get a second?
Yes.
Yes.
We did,
Barbara.
okay.
Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
I'll vote yes also.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so
October.
October. If there's any changes that you think that has been discussed that would help satisfy a couple people, then make them. That's about all I can say at this time. You know, you see how it lies. But it's not dead in the water. No. I know it's disappointing, but not dead.
Thanks for the work.
Okay. All righty, petition of Seacoast Management Consulting LLC owner for property located at 3 Walton Alley, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, replace the rear window, add back storm door, and add an AC condenser. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 103 as Lot 20, lies within General Residence B and Historic Districts. And who's here to speak on this?
Lisa Messina.
Hello?
So we were looking to put an AC unit in the back, and it's very tight
Could you lift your
backyard.
mic up, because it's
Sure.
not coming through very well. Yeah.
So I wanted to add AC to the house. I think it looks better than the window ACs and more historic than putting in the splits in the house. And the only spot to put the AC, I think to not need a variance would have been under the stairs, but the plumbing inspector just pointed out that he thinks that's not going to work because the doorway is too low to have enough room to do that. So what I would like to do is to put it to the right of the back stairs there, which is closer than the 6 feet to the fence, but the neighbor abutting, James Woods, said he would support that, and it would keep it further away from the other 2 houses on the other side. And I think the only other area that you could put it is to the left of the bulkhead, and that would kind of block the walkway coming into the yard, and it would also be pretty unattractive with a big box there, and then the bulkhead going down low and the stairs coming up back high. I think if we put it in that, on that right side there, to the right of the stairs, and put a nice, lattice box around it or something like that, and maybe a pretty bush in front of it, we could kind of make it disappear. And then the window there is, I just wanted to have a little water view, and I had picked out a historic window with all the properties, for the right insulation values and everything. That's wood with all the individual lights that I wanted to put there. That would just mean that we could see a little bit more of the water out the back and get a little bit more light into the kitchen. And then the storm door was purely for insulating value, and it would be a higher quality storm door, not an inexpensive vinyl door.
So I was thinking, thank God we got ourselves a little residential thing to look at here. But I see some questions. Does anybody else see any questions?
Yeah.
Where's the, do you see a window? Do you have any plans on the window?
Well, the spec sheet for the Anderson window, that's what you want to use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it's 6 feet wide, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And if you could clarify, please, the location for the AC unit.
Right where it's
When I looked at the backside of the property, not wanting to peer in too much to your house, I thought that the AC unit was going to be underneath, so I thought, this is great, this is easy.
Be great.
So
That's what I wanted
if it's
to do.
put to the right, the set of stairs that are there right now, do they butt up against the foundation, or is there a space between the foundation and the stairs?
There's no space. I would like to, the stairs are kind of falling apart and need repair. It would be nice to be able to have the stairs come straight out into the yard and then have the AC unit to the right where it says 11 feet. There's a fence there that's being replaced by James Woods anyway. He's replacing that, so it would be tucked in right there in that corner by the fence. And he's also planning to put a garage there, and that would be his driveway. So I think it would be least bothersome there and would look more attractive there in the backyard.
So the condenser will sit, if I'm looking at the right-hand side of this picture and I can just see the corner board of the house, it sits to the right of that.
Yes.
It doesn't hide behind the house, it sits to the right a little bit. I know it's really tight there and there's a.
It's really tight, yeah.
Right?
No, I think she's saying where the stairs are, not beyond the house.
Like, well, that's
The house is on the lot
that's
line.
what I was, well, okay, so just to clarify, right now, there is no proposal to change the stairs to straight.
Correct.
So I'm working with what I see right here,
Right.
and it looks as if the condenser either sits at the bottom of the stairs where when you step off of the last riser, you're going to be hitting the condenser, or it has to be further to the right, beyond the sidewall of the house.
I think she said the stairs are moving to the back. She hasn't submitted it, and that's where it's got
I
to.
thought I did submit it, but
Okay.
maybe it's not on there, to repair them and have them come straight out into the yard. Because the other issue with it being on the left of the bulkhead is that there's a Unitil, I think, meter there that would have to be moved, the plumber said. And I think that, I just think it would be very unattractive and would be more visible to.
I'm not seeing anything here that indicates the stairs are moving.
It
All I
might have
know
been
is
in
that-
an email to Isaac, and then I don't know if I asked for the repair and if I could, I think I was asking for a repair in kind where I could
So
fix
Lisa,
them.
the hard
but
part is,
turn them.
I'll just say a couple things. The hard part here is we've continued this a couple months while you've worked out internal issues with the inspection department regarding work inside the house.
Right.
And this is what got submitted quite a while ago. And I was aware you were going to need to modify this to get out from underneath the porch because it doesn't meet the code requirements, as you've already said tonight. But I was told as early as the beginning of the week that this AC condenser was going to be on the left-hand side by the bulkhead.
Yes, the plumber
And
just,
now it's over on the right, and the stairs are moving. So I think there's no doubt, no matter what happens here tonight, you're going to have to clean this all up and
Okay.
at least come back for administrative approval with an exact location.
okay,
And if you're moving it to the right and the stairs are coming off the back, it'll need to be very clear that's what you're doing.
okay,
And any screening that you put in, and you also have to get a variance to put it on the right where you didn't on the left.
okay.
And I think you know that, but that's why I thought for sure you were putting it next to the bulkhead behind the house because you didn't need a variance. If the best location's to the right because of the neighbor over there not minding and having the garage and the driveway and the fence, then, you need to revise this so we know where it's going and how it's screened and how those stairs are going to be introduced on the back where they aren't now,
Okay.
right? I mean, it's a moving target here and it's
Right.
hard,
So if you're going to be coming back, does anybody else have any questions about the size of this picture window? I mean, it looks pretty big to me.
I don't know where it goes, so I can't
So it goes,
come up with much of an
goes
opinion.
here, Dave? If you look at the screen, well, I presume it's not a very different, what's the height of it compared to this window?
Probably a little bit higher.
But I mean, it's a big opening in that wall. I mean,
Be a little bit
You
lower.
might get a little bit more clarity with a box, but that's where it's going, and it's,
It's
There's a breakfast nook there, so it'd be just the picture window. above the
48
breakfast
inches,
nook
it's
from
4
there.
feet tall. I would assume that window is 4 feet, wouldn't you, David? That 6/6?
6/6 has to be 48 inches,
Yeah.
including the sill.
So I would assume the height would be the same.
2.5
Are you
of those.
going to start the window on the left-hand side of that window, or is that old window, would that be in the middle of where you want to put the new window?
We'd started on the left-hand side from the corner.
So you want to go over to the corner?
Yes. It'd be
Over
in the
here?
corner.
On the right?
Yes.
yeah. It would,
Swear right.
it would be great you know, it would have been great if you actually
Yeah.
put a rectangle on there instead of a circle.
Sorry.
Yeah, the
This
circle
is good.
doesn't help us.
Okay, I just thought with the window.
Do you have a contractor?
The height is.
I just have a carpenter.
Somebody's
And
got
then
to
a
draw
separate-
up some plans.
But that's,
If you're going to move the stairs, then we need to see them.
Okay, I don't need to move the stairs. I can put the AC to the left.
I
I
mean,
just thought it was more attractive to put it to the right and fix the
That's where it
stairs.
should be.
well, that's, I don't
Well,
I don't
it'd be
necessarily
nice
think
not to need a variance too.
more than
but-
twice.
Yeah, you can put it on the left of that.
whatever you would like to do. I certainly think that changing the stairs to make it come out will make the whole thing cleaner. You can even just use the property tax map plan so that we can see on plan view exactly how things are moving out. That would help us to understand and make your plan clear. But I have questions about the visibility of that large window from any public way.
No one sees into the, you can't see into the backyard. I went around and took pictures from every angle. Nobody can see the window from, if you walk around the whole block. The only people seeing the window would be the one neighbor next to me.
Yeah,
in
because
the
it is,
backyard.
that is a large window in that space. I almost wonder if it would be better looking to just put 2 double hung windows there or something, rather than one big window with lots of muttons.
I think because the pipes that come out underneath the window, it's supposed to be a picture window. So, but I mean, I can get probably
The
small
pipes.
picture windows. There's pipes underneath. If
Oh.
they're in the stone there that come out.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I don't know.
Can I ask Nick a question?
Yep.
Certainly.
If you move it to the left, why don't you need a variance?
Because it'll be 10 feet away. There's a driveway on the left, which is the right if you're standing on Walton Alley.
Yep,
There's a
yep.
driveway, and there's more than 10 feet from the edge of the property line to the back corner of the house. It would have to be behind the house, but if it's behind the house, it's more than 10 feet.
Okay. So if you put it right next to the bulkhead, you'd still have 10 feet
Yes,
from your fence?
Yes.
yes.
Neighbor?
But what you were saying is it would be more visible than if it were tucked around on the right.
If you look at the map on the screen, this is 3 Walton. You can see there's only about a foot and a half on this side.
Yep.
Yes,
There's room right here to be 10 feet off of this lot line and still be behind the house.
okay. I think, all right.
So it is a preference of the applicant, but, you know, there's a hardship in, even with the support of the neighbor, in going off for a couple months to get a variance to put it in that 10-foot on the right. But it's her choice.
Oh, it's going into fall and winter, so I won't need it anytime soon now, so
Well-
I'm fine to wait for the variance.
Whatever you would prefer, I think it's
Need
fine.
to see the screen. And the stairs if they're gonna move.
All right.
So where are we with the picture window? Or whatever it's called, the big window?
It's a big window. It's on the back of the house and apparently not visible.
Well, I can see it out my window.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be personally more comfortable with two
Double
double hung windows mulled together. That's a,
more traditional.
well, it makes, it's in my comfort zone.
You can see it? Where can you see it from? Where do you see it from?
Pardon?
Where do you see it from? Do you mean, oh, just like looking here, or do you
Where do you
mean from the
live?
street?
I live at 210 Gate Street.
Okay, and you can see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I walked around, I didn't see it.
Well, you didn't go in my,
Yeah,
my
backyard,
pantry,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
He's got his telescope.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, huh? We're going to do that again?
Did you know? Okay. Any other comments? It seems like that we need a continuance for this.
Yes.
Is the preference of the commission to have 2 double hungs instead of the picture, I mean, giving her some feedback, because she's gonna come back?
I think that would be more historically
Stud
accurate.
pocket?
Yeah, I agree.
If you can fit that in.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, bring some sort of drawing or sketch out or something so that we can see what that would
Yeah,
look
we
like.
need to see where they're gonna go.
Okay.
I think there might be some public comment, but I don't know. Let's find out, meaning here. Is
All
that-
right, okay. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak about this proposal?
Okay, no,
Can you sit down?
all right. So I'd suggest you continue
Yeah,
this
I'll
and
move-
give her a chance to adjust.
Okay, I move that we continue this to next month, and you can, if you need more time, you can take that.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? All righty, so. Postponed to the October 5th meeting, okay, 43 Holmes Court, that's still out.
What's that like?
And East Street Condominium Association. So that is officially postponed, I don't need to read that, right? So we're on public hearings, new business. Petition of Mill Pond View LLC owner for property located at 179 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, minor demolition, new construction, restoration, renovation of the accessory structures and the annex of the main home. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 108 as Lot 15 and lies within the Mixed Research Office and Historic Districts. And who here is presenting this?
So it's here.
Good evening. Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects. I'm here presenting this historic restoration and addition that we had spoken about, and we were looking at we did actually upload later on this today. We uploaded the site plan to give everyone an idea of where we are on the site with our new additions, and so that is part of the package as well. Looking at the Captain Thomas Thompson house, Dave has been very busy restoring windows, and we've captured a lot of sashes and doors and trim for reinstallation on the carriage house and on the annex. And I think I'll just dive into 1.0. I don't know if Nick is operating things yet up there.
If I can get it to
All right.
function. Here he comes.
All right.
We tried to take your job.
Are you ready for the next slide?
Okay.
You good?
Good, all set. I think I have the clicker. Looking at this package that we've reviewed with you several times, we've had a lot of discussions about the historic carriage house here on the right-hand side, and we've included some existing photography here of the building. And one of the things that we had looked at much earlier in our site walk was that this top floor of the carriage house is really fairly intact from its original historic construction. And we also have an original door here that we will be retaining and reinstalling on a more stable structure. We've color-coded areas that are to be demolished, areas that are to be replaced in kind, and areas to be removed, restored, and reinstalled. So this second floor of the carriage house will be very carefully lifted off of the base wall or the first floor wall, because most of it has been removed during renovations over time, and there's a significant amount of water damage from a high grade on this right-hand side. So it will be the grade will be lowered so that we have a nice, clear 18-inch dry area above that, so that that doesn't happen again. Moving on to 1.1, we're further documenting the existing conditions here of the current structures out back, some of which were added to the historic carriage house. And a lot of the internal structures in these areas have been taken apart, repurposed, recut, and reinstalled. So moving on to the next page, we have additional areas behind the carriage house, and then the connector piece, with the exception of the door, is really not salvageable. It's sort of, you can see that picture right there, tells the story of the water infiltration and the damage to the structure, which we have seen in the appendix, and we've reviewed during our prior work sessions. And again, looking at this last side on 1.3, bringing us full circle around the carriage house, and this is the area that really has suffered the most from water damage and runoff, just because of the way the grade kind of goes up on one side of the property. Moving on to 2.0, we've developed this key on the upper right here, which will show where we are replicating the casing that is currently existing on either the carriage house, historic carriage house trim, or historic annex trim that will be, we've color-coded it to be replicated and reinstalled. So we'll have knives cut and have the moldings all made up and recreated for reinstallation, or in new places where we have some new areas, such as, up in this area here, we will be using that historic trim sort of for that cohesive effect. 2.1 outlines the trim that will be replicated based on existing photographs here, and that's the key to the colored plan. Dave has very carefully documented and measured and taken great care to preserve those items so that he'll know what it is that he's cutting up or what he'll be creating. 2.2 shows all of our details for the eaves and the skirt boards, and how these annex eave and the mansion eave will align and be working with each other. So we'll be using those same details on some of the new areas. We had some questions last time about the stone and what kind of stone we were going to be using and where we were gathering our inspiration from. So down on the lower right corner here, you can see that we have typical stone uncovered during excavation, which was clearly used in figure 6 here as the existing foundation at the mansion. This is a photo of the stone sort of having been cut and laid up in a regular, more squared pattern. But we also found several examples of stone from the Athenaeum as in the stone stable on Fleet Street, and there's several other examples here for the stone store. And then obviously just walking right on the hill, this is kind of the look of stone that we're seeing basically right in the hole of the mansion dig. So we've been looking at, our intention is to match the stone as closely as possible on the addition at the back, in the backyard, where wherever it really can't be seen from many locations. The other issue that we had discussed, the other concern, was the chimney and how visible the chimney would be from Pleasant Street. So if you look at 3.1, we did a series of clips as you pass by the house. So just passing by the mansion, you really can't see it until you get slightly past the mansion, where it will appear between these two structures. And then as you keep going, it starts to sort of disappear behind the proposed connector. So eventually hidden completely. So the visibility is very low for that particular design element. Moving on to 4.0, we see the restored carriage house, the restored mansion, which is currently undergoing work right now, and then the connector piece with trim and original windows, and then just seeing how the whole area comes together, as well as the new entrance design that we talked about in our last work session.
And can I just interject? There are big trees here that are not shown in,
Thank you.
in the rendering too,
Thank
right?
you. There's a
Okay.
very large tree here that has been taken out of the rendering so that we can see the house.
But it
yes,
is there.
trees are staying. Coming around to this sort of aerial view of the backyard, you can see that we have a generous amount of copper roofing here, and we will be doing this entire area in slate. So we have slate roofs going on all additions, and with the exception of this flat area from our last approval, and then this area, obviously, we had already put forward as a slate roof. And then here, the stone here would all be very similar to the stone that's on the original mansion foundation and has been found in the excavation. Moving on to 4.2. Again, traditional railing and stone in keeping with the historic stone that we're finding on site, and copper gutters as well on all of these structures. And the restored side of the existing carriage house can be seen right here, that restored carriage house. And then as we move on to materials, these are wonderful, very high quality slate, copper, and stone. So all extremely appropriate. Moving on to 5.1, we are looking at custom wood garage doors, wood veneer garage doors. We do want to have them insulated. We do have Marvin sliders, and we have Marvin clad ultimates because of the door configurations. We will do a half light here as well in Marvin custom, and then again the Marvin wood windows everywhere that is indicated on the key plan. Moving on, the garage door will be custom upstate door cedar. We'll be using timber posts and brackets. And then we're again using the Marvin clad ultimate in the newer addition areas, and we will be reverting back to the windows that we had approved previously a few months ago on the main house, the mansion with the double hung wood ultimates. So again, we had some awnings approved on the mansion prior as well, or actually not on the mansion, but on the round addition that was added to that at a later date. So we've sort of carried some of these materials through that from our last, from the approval of the mansion area.
So the 10 by 10 posts, timber posts are white oak?
Yes.
Amazing.
All right. Moving on to 6.0, again, we are putting forward the locations for everything, what kind of material we're using, where the material is. Again, the historic door being reinstalled is door number 3, front and center. And 6.1 has a key plan in the upper right to show you where all of these elevations are located. And we've also included just the existing elevations to sort of keep everyone, give you all an idea of where you are in the project or where you are as you move around the house. Window schedule showing all the window sizes and what they'll be made out of in their locations on 6.2. Clearly defined and outlined. And then 6.3, again, more keys, dimensions, and call-outs for materials. Same on 6.4. And moving to 6.5, we have the dimension floor plans to indicate the size of the overall size of the buildings. And then again on 6.6, the step back upper level on the connector and the slate copper and small area of flat roof membrane where we've continued the slate throughout the entire roof plan there, wherever it is not copper. So I've also included the appendix if we have questions on that, where we can review anything that you want to look at about the structural, extensive consultation with historian consultants. Also with Gorham Structural Engineering has done a structural report for your review in there so that you can thoroughly review the conditions and the structural capacities of the existing buildings. And then Dave has written also a narrative on all of his intentions toward restoration and renovation and how he plans on tackling this project. So if anyone has any questions on any of those reports, I'd be happy to speak to those, or Dave can speak to probably his own report. So.
No, I don't see anybody with any questions concerning the reports. I mean, we've had the reports for a while.
Yes.
And I have looked at them and read them. They're very detailed.
Thank you.
And some of them are way beyond my comprehension. But it's kind of nice. I'm going to use them for reference now, knowing what an old beam can carry as far as its pounds per linear foot and such.
Marty's
Sometimes
very
it's difficult
thorough.
to get that information.
He's very thorough.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? Do you have more presentation?
No.
Oh, this is it. Okay. Does anybody in the public, would anyone like to comment on this project? I don't see anybody. You're not seeing anyone online?
No.
It's amazing. This is a huge project.
I'll
This
make
is certainly a mansion. Yeah,
I'll make a comment.
yeah, certainly.
Which is just that, and repeating basically my comments from last time, that this is, you guys have done such a wonderfully well thought out and thorough design and restoration of everything going on. And I think that the new additions that you're putting on, we've gone through this with the work sessions, the new sort of configuration of the connector section in between is very appropriate in size and design. And so I'm still baffled as to why the stone is being used. I would, and it's fine in a way that it's in the back, and I could almost accept the fact that it's in the back. It's the stone chimneys that still are giving me pause. And it would make me so happy if you came back and said that we would like to do the chimneys in brick. Not because, in a way, mainly because I feel like a random ashlar stone chimney with these types of stones, like the outcome is not going to be very attractive. And it's fine in a foundation wall, and so I could almost accept it being in the lower parts of that, the addition in the back, because it is sort of foundation wall level, and that's more appropriate. But I don't know. I would think that you might want to reconsider the chimney aspects of this. So those are my comments of this. But otherwise, again, you're top notch with this project.
So, well, we can also make comments because I'm going to close this public hearing now, and.
Okay. Well, I just didn't. It was one of those things where I was gonna.
Yeah. Well, you got it
I
in.
gave them an opportunity.
You did
respond.
have the opportunity. I would want to remind some people that this has already been approved in the past. This is a mansion, remember? And if you remember what was approved a couple years ago,
It was very different.
was a swimming pool which went from the inside of the structure outside and was covered up by some kind of trellis type of thing. It was really very elaborate and something I kind of wanted to see built, but,
A very formal garden.
So it has been approved for very elaborate designs in the past, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm looking for a motion.
Okay. I guess I'll wait.
You got a motion?
No.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
Is now the time for comment?
Yeah, would you like to discuss this? And don't forget, the maker of the motion has to, finding of facts and.
Yes. So I believe we do that now before we discuss.
Oh, certainly.
All right, 1 second here.
Scribble it down on a piece of paper.
I am.
Bottom of that.
Right
Yeah,
there.
there you go. Thank you. I believe it conservation and enhancement of property values, and in relation to the historic and architectural value of existing structure.
Martin, you want to add anything?
I would just say that the level of preservation you're doing on this is incredible, and it's a model for any other restoration out there. And so when you take liberties in the back with with some personal preferences, as I see what the stone is, I can accept that. So I think it's a wonderful project, and it's I very much appreciate all the efforts that are going into this. So.
I'm sorry. Margot?
Okay, so I will express an opposing opinion. I don't think this is in keeping with the nature of the historic building. I do completely agree that the preservation work that is being done on this building is fantastic, why it baffles me that that amount of care is being put into the old building, and then this massive, very, very modern structure is being put in the back. I don't think it's a typical back of the house project, and we're not talking about a deck, we're not talking about a window, we're talking about a structure that is practically the size of the existing structure. And the structure that we approved several years ago was large in footprint, but not nearly as massive. This building is so iconic that they had to put a sign on the front saying private residence, because people would go to the Langdon house and then they would want to go right next door and walk into this house. And so to put this large modern structure behind a house that has to put a sign on the front that says private residence so that nobody wants to tour it doesn't make sense to me at all. I mean, I can't imagine we would approve something like this on the back of the John Langdon house. And if we're not going to approve it there, I can't see why we would approve it in this situation. With all due respect, I disagree. I don't think this is in keeping with the existing property, and I don't think it's in keeping with the neighborhood either. I think that it is absolutely possible to put an addition back there. I'm not in disagreement with that at all. But this size, this mass, and in some cases the style, just seems out of place to me with this very iconic, special building.
Rich?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just defend my, I think the level of preservation on the main building and the annex in the front and the view that the public will see is such to a level of detail and excellence that the massing in the back does give me caution. However, the fact that it is not visible, from anywhere, I mean, the chimney, yes, I agree with Commissioner Rudig that I would love to see that brick like the other chimneys on the main building, on the main mansion. However, the level of detail is not going to be a deal breaker for me.
Okay, well, I say that we put this, yeah, Dan, you want
I
to?
was just going to add that again, I agree with everything on the preservation, but this is a unique backyard. It's so private that it doesn't, I think they should be allowed, with all the effort they're putting in the front, to do what they want in the back, that almost no one's going to see.
If I could add one comment to that, I have seen more than one backyard privacy disappear.
Pardon me?
The backyard of this relies on the hill, yes, and the hill will not stay. But on the other side, it's surrounded and screened by trees, and those trees may not stay there.
Yeah.
I have seen more than one person lose their entire backyard privacy because their neighbor cut down their trees. So there is no guarantee that.
No. And there's no guarantee that everybody wants it screened either. So I think that it's time for a vote. So all those in favor of this project, say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. And against?
No.
Opposed?
2 opposed. 3. 4-3. Okay. So you have your approval. Yep, good night. Petition of Pickering Wharf Condominium Association owner, Mr. Chairman, property located.
I need to recuse myself.
Oh, this is the one you need to
Yeah,
recuse
I'm a
yourself.
butter.
Have a seat. Okay, excuse me. 33 South Mill Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure. Add a solar array to the roof of the existing building, as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 102, Lot 17, lies within the General Residence B and Historic Districts. And who is here to speak on this?
My name is Kevin Bean, and my wife Melinda Salazar and I own both of the condominium units. It's a duplex.
Okay, welcome.
So we are the condominium association. And we have met with Sunergy Solutions, which is a photovoltaic installer, and they're the ones that submitted the plans. I was not aware until a few days ago that they weren't going to be here to answer any technical questions, but some of them I could if you need that, because I've done a bit of solar work myself. So
this is
I'm
the
here
blurry
to.
picture. Why is this picture so blurry?
Because it's taken from the sky. But what I can do is I realized that when I saw what they had presented to the.
It doesn't even look like a building to me. It looks
Well,
like
you're looking at
record
a
player
pitched
or
roof
something.
with dormer addition off the back. So what you're looking at the back, that lighter color, is like a roll roofing on a very low pitched roof. So what, I can give you some pictures of the front of the building, and if that's helpful.
Yes. Couldn't hurt.
Here, and the other thing that I'm submitting is looking at the neighbor's house that does have photovoltaics on it, which is encouraging to me because that's on Pickering Street
Ah,
in my backyard, one of my backyards.
what is this white roof? Is this a roof?
Rolled roofing?
It's roll roofing. It's a
It's a
low-pitched
shed
roof. It's an addition. Well, the house has a long history, and I don't know all of it, but it was a barn originally in the 1700s somewhere else and moved where it is in the 1800s, and it's been a duplex for many, many years. But that low-pitched roof on the back was not original to when it was moved to the site from the original framing. So that's why I took a picture of the house, looking at it from the street. I don't know if anybody went by it, but you can see the house.
John, do you need to choose an alternate since Dan?
Yes.
Yes, I do. And I'm inclined to let Karen vote on this one. She's been sitting here. I'm sorry I didn't mention that. Where are we all sitting on this thing? Oh, I've got another picture for you.
Neighbor
This is the neighbor's house.
on Pickering.
And in terms of submitting that, other than knowing that there have been solar installations approved in the neighborhood, I intend to use a very similar-looking panel, which is black, and I would need to actually re-shingle the southern part of my roof where the solar panels are, and I think I'm going to need to re-shingle it because they're not in bad shape, but they're old enough that it would behoove me to actually put on new shingles before I put panels on that are going to last 25 years. So my intention would be to do those, which are visible from the street, to be a color to match the,
That's what they're recommending, that you do, put a new roof on.
yes.
Is it going to be an asphalt roof?
It is an asphalt roof, and it will
It
still
will
be, yeah.
Okay, so,
You won't see much of it. If you look at the way they've superimposed the solar panels on it, you're just going to see some around the middle and a little bit in between, but it'll be black on black, basically.
have you shown this plan to the building inspector or anyone else, the fire department or the building inspection department?
From my understanding, I didn't submit this information because I hired a solar contractor, and they submitted these plans, and I believe the way you got them is they go to the building inspector, who then decides which
You've got
district it's in.
You do have a problem. And, because I've talked with other people, and essentially they shrink down the amount of solar panels you can put on, because they have to have room for firefighters to walk up the sides and the front, and,
Cut holes.
yeah. It's kind of hard to understand, but the roof can't be solid solar panels.
I understand that could be a consideration.
It
I
is a
don't know, I had no idea that I need to submit it to the fire department ahead of time. It has been submitted to the building inspection department, I assume, which is why it got here. Can I be?
When you submit the building permit application, it gets pitched over to planning to see what permits it may need or not. And this obviously needed to come to the district. So no one's reviewed this in the inspection department yet, or the fire department. Definitely, there will be less panels. They're going to require a 4-foot setback from all the edges, which is going to impact the field of panels. And, they need to be able to get on the roof, like John said, whether it makes sense or not. They need to get on the roof, up the sides, along the bottom, be able to put holes in the roof if there's a fire in the attic, and not have to take a solar panel off to do that. Maybe the skylights are going to work. I don't know, but expect it to be modified when it's reviewed by the inspection department.
Okay, well, my understanding, it had to come here first, so I guess I would like to hear what you have to say about that rather than send me to.
Yes, Reagan.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at our guidelines for the historic district, but we do have a separate section in the back that talks about placement of solar panels, and the main thing that our guidelines really stress is that they not be very visible from the public way and not be on the main face or, the facade. of a building. We have approved, as you have seen, other solar panel arrays in the historic district, but they're usually on the back of the building or in a space that is not necessarily the face of the building or very readily visible. So the fact that this is on the facade of your house and is very visible from the street, I can't support this. And even though I love the idea of solar panels, I think it's really important. Would love to put some on my house. So I don't know if it's at all possible to put them on this back, flat section or something, to have them tilted up so that it's less visible from the street and from all the public ways.
Martin,
I have the
wants to
same
talk?
concern.
Well, okay, my assumption, if it were on the back roof, I would have to put a racking system that would be sticking up, and you would have it, and I might be able to avoid some shading from the front roof, but functionally speaking, maybe no. I don't know. I mean, would you approve something like that if I had a rack at a 45-degree angle running all the way across the back? You couldn't see from the street, but
I think, if there was some way that you could photograph it and mock it up so that we could understand that it wasn't visible from, we could do a site walk or something like that where we could see that it wouldn't be readily
visible from my neighbors I'm looking at their solar panels, be
Right.
visible from my neighbor behind me. So I guess,
Yeah, is there anybody else that wants to comment on that?
I guess I'd like to hear other comments, because if this is a non-starter, I'll go and get my money back. And I was hoping that there might be some evolution with the department here in terms of looking. I'm at sea level, and I've been doing solar stuff for years, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first one underwater. And so I've been trying to do things with electric vehicles, solar energy, and everything else that I can do.
Don't blame you.
I understand. I consciously own in the historic district, but I also thought there may be some evolution within the city in terms of looking at sustainability and a picture slightly bigger than history, even though I know that this is your consideration. And also to know that this building 32 years ago when I bought it was a dump. It had broken picture windows in the front, and the sills were rotted, and the foundation was caved in, and everything else. So when I look at evolution of buildings, I'm just giving my personal opinion. Yes, I understand whether you're looking at a shingle or a solar panel, it is a different aesthetic, but it's also part of a much, much bigger picture. I'm not thinking I'm going to change your mind, but I figured it was worth a try.
Yeah.
So thank you, and I will work on community solar.
Yeah,
we haven't really gotten to a point of even voting on this yet, or at least asking you to.
Well, I think I'm sorry then if I misinterpret. I heard that this doesn't conform to the guidelines of and you'd like me to consider something else.
Of course, they are
And
guidelines.
I guess I should check out with the fire department, because if it were on the other side, I'm not sure that it would be worth it to put the panels up for a few panels.
Well, let me ask you, is this shed roof addition that's on the back, is that a very low-pitched roof?
Yeah, it's a very low pitch roof, and it slopes down. So if you look at where the panels are, and then you see the brown roof behind it before you get to the white one,
Yeah.
it drops down about 4 feet there. So if I went,
If you were to put the panels on
You need a
that-
microphone to go over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point something out here.
Okay.
That area there, if I put a rack that would tilt the panels up enough towards the sun, I doubt you would see it from the street. I can't imagine that you would see it from the street, knowing I've been up on the roof a lot of times. So if that is something that might be a possibility that this board would consider, I can have my solar company redesign it.
I mean, I would think that we would, it would be considered.
It'd be worth looking at.
It would be worth looking at. I think, all of our hearts are in the right place, but, there's a problem with your location now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a possibility that if you want to redesign it with your racks and also have street views looking up at your house so that we could see if the solar panels are
Yeah.
going to be visible, et cetera. So that's a driveway on one side. And what's on the right-hand side of your house?
It's a brick walkway for a back entrance to get to the other side.
I think we could easily have a sidewalk as well.
Yeah. Is there a sidewalk on Pickens?
Sidewalk.
So-
I'm saying.
There's no sidewalk on South Mill Street. You can walk down the street or you can swim on the other side of it.
No, I was saying we could all go for a site walk, not sidewalk.
I'm pretty sure you would not be able
Would
to
be a
see it.
very
It's just
short
more of a structural thing, and from my point of view, looking at the back,
Do it on your own.
Fine.
I think we should do it on our own.
Okay, fine.
I think we should, go down Pickering and look in the driveway and see for ourselves, because I can't imagine all of us gathering for a site walk and it's over, we're just looking up. Yes, Margot?
I would agree with what has been said, that having them in the location you've presented so far would not be acceptable with the guidelines and the view from across the water. I would absolutely be willing to take a look at a mock-up of what something on the back of the house would look like, and if you could get that to us, we can then walk down South Mill Pond and take a look at.
okay, and how soon would I get a hearing? I'm many months into this, so,
Next month, the beginning of October,
okay.
we would continue this until the beginning of October. So you'd only need to refile your revised plan.
Okay.
Not pay a fee, no more notice. It would get continued to October.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll have them, have the contractors talk to the fire department, see if they need, it would be easier to get that clearance on the back roof.
Yeah.
And I'll have to see what they can mock up. My hope was the panels on the south roof would give me enough power to produce 100% of more than 100% of my electricity, plus run my new electric car, so.
I think it will. I know somebody who just put 12 panels on, and they pay no electricity.
Yeah, no, I think this is 16, and that much more than I need for my house, but I bought a plug-in Prius, and so that runs around town on electricity. Hopefully it'll be solar. All right, thank you.
So we're going to postpone you till next month, I guess.
Okay, and I'll get them to submit, I'll get them to redesign, and we'll see what we get.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved?
Thank you.
Seconded?
Somebody second it?
Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. So there we go.
5 for 5.
Petition of Paul S. Nielsen, owner for property located at 31 Aldridge Road, Unit 33, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure. Add rear deck, extend existing rear bump-out addition, replace window and one door, replace 2 screen doors, replace 2 bulkheads, replace existing shed, and remove and replace existing composite decking on the front of the structure as per plans on file with the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 153, Lot 28, lies within General Residence A in Historic District. And I've heard that you are right on the edge of the historic.
We are, yeah, it's cutting right through the corner of the building.
Ah, yeah. So
Perfect.
Here you are.
What's that?
Here you are.
Yeah, and here we are. So I'm Ben. This is the existing structure, and you can see it's kind of in disrepair. So we're proposing to put a nice deck on the back and push that little bump out on the left side of the existing bump out. We're just going to go out about 4 feet, a 4x5, a little 20 square foot addition to give them a place to take their boots off when they come home. And then the bulkheads are also in pretty disrepair, so we're going to replace those with a metal bulkhead and get rid of those structures that are already kind of falling down. So that's the as-built. I actually have a copy of what we're proposing here. I can give you guys all a copy.
Thank you. I was going to ask for that because we don't have any.
Wow, paper.
Okay.
Sir, can I ask you a question? Is this a single unit or a double unit?
It's a double. It's a double. They own both sides of it and rent one side out.
Are you going to do it symmetrically? on both sides?
Well, you'll see on the plan that I show that the bump is only on the left side but not on the right. We keep that 2/2 on the right side of the bump, but the deck is symmetrical around the bump out, so it still holds that.
I'll just say I'm familiar with this house.
What is
I
that?
drive by Aldrich all the time, and I've never seen the back of it, so I don't think it's very readily visible. But from what I understand the plans, it's actually cleaning it up a
Yeah,
little
considerably.
bit, and taking off those two little
Yeah, the
doors.
two kind of, well, what we're calling bulkheads are getting removed.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to put a low-level, metal bulkheads in their place or in their stay. Yeah, you'll see on the east elevation, it shows an extended eave on the roof line. The homeowner wanted to have something that extended out. We're considering doing brackets, but we're also carrying the existing roof detail around with a larger frieze to match what's happening on the roof lines on the sides, to give it a little bit more character that, lends itself to the existing roof lines.
Why is that roof sticking out like that?
They wanted to have an area that was covered out and where they could go out if it was raining and sit down and not have a covered porch per se.
Could you sell them an awning?
Maybe.
Yeah,
Are you selling them?
I could get some.
Okay. Yeah, it extends out, and I played around with different designs, whether or not to add that large frieze or to take away that large frieze to scale it and give it the proper pitch. The one thing I think might lend itself to that overhang is a couple of brackets that sit on the outside to give it some purpose, so it actually looks like it's being held up. It would
Maybe
be
a post?
superficial. Structurally, I'll be able to turn LVL hangers, heavy-duty LVL hangers, upside down on the backside to carry the load of the roof, and I think structurally it's fine, but a couple brackets might lend itself to that.
And none of the side elevations are being
None.
touched at all.
None. All in the back of the house.
So you are subsuming one window into the addition.
Yeah, so there's 2 windows and 1 door, plus the storm doors. If the second floor center window, the 2/2, is an existing bathroom that we already have a permit to renovate. It's a damp location and/or in the shower, so it's a tempered vinyl window is what we propose, so that it wouldn't, have a problem with rot in the long term.
So you're talking about the second floor?
Yeah, and then on the first floor, as shown in the north elevation drawing you have, there's a 4-light awning window that sits to the left of the rear entry door, and then the entry door itself. So those are the 3 fenestrations that are going into the building.
And the existing window to the left of the bump out right now is
That gets taken away, because that now goes in, that is interior space.
subsumed by the...
Yeah, yep.
I agree that the overhang needs some kind of
Bracketing.
visual support, whether it's a bracket or
Yeah.
post.
Okay.
Or you put a third one.
It's hard to approve something, I know it's back of the house, et cetera, that I know is wrong. Structurally, it's not going to work. That roof overhang, it's just, I don't,
Can that be a stipulation that they come
What?
back with?
Come back with support.
stipulation that the roof is wrong.
No,
Well,
they come
sir-
back with some sort of support.
The support, it's okay on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, if you look, any support that he puts on the right-hand side is brackets or anything are going to obstruct that door, which is right there.
The bracket would probably land on the corner board.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean, is that you've got your deck extending out
Yeah,
on the right-hand side. You wouldn't be able to access that very well.
I'm not sure I follow you.
It would be obstruct the accessibility of that little bit of deck on the right-hand side.
Well, it wouldn't be
And a post would do the same, actually.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a post. I would, so as far as structurally, from an engineering perspective, my approach would be to take a couple LVLs, carry them out to cantilever out the 50-some inches that the roof overhangs, drop some heavy-duty hangers upside down on those LVLs on the
Yeah.
back, and that would carry that cantilever because it's
It
about
probably would
50-50.
work.
Come again?
Yeah,
What's that?
it would work, it's just, I don't know. Any other comments here? No?
You were also adding a shed?
Yeah, we'd love to. They have an existing shed on the property that you can see on the tax map. That's approximately the same size. I have a copy of it here if you'd like to see it. It's also on the filed permit. that-
It's in here? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, and it's within inches to the same size of what's there. And again, the one that's there is in disrepair.
Will this be painted to match the house?
Right now, I believe it's clear shakes, but if that's a stipulation, I'm sure we could abide.
Um,
I think it's clear
Clear
shakes. I
shakes.
think it probably says it on the spec sheet right there. Let me look.
Cedar tongue and groove.
It's hard to
It looks
say.
on it, it looks like cedar tongue and groove.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So certainly it could be painted and will look much like the.
The current shed has a very, very similar siding. The door is a little fancier, but the siding's very similar.
Yeah.
And the front porch repairs, it's AZEC, PVC, just for the,
Yeah, the stairs and existing landing have composite on it already, but it's like first gen and it's fading and just looks awful.
this
So-
would just be the horizontal flat surfaces,
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, the risers I think would probably stay. I haven't really investigated that. If they needed to be replaced, would that be okay? And if so.
Replaced in kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no changes to the
Size and
the
structure.
balusters or anything like that?
No rail changes on the front of the porch, no.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Other than seeing what your support idea looks like, I'm good
I'd
with
probably
this.
do a scalloped brace that, came down and might have a little bit of a curve in it. Or I could do a straight brace that kind of seems like it's more in vogue nowadays. But something nice.
Yeah.
It's not the style as much as the proportion I'm interested
Oh,
in.
yeah, certainly.
Cool.
Okay, no other questions? Okay, anybody in the public would like to comment on this? Nobody online? So I'm going to close the public hearing and look for a motion.
I move that we approve this application with the stipulation that the shed be painted to match the house and that they
Support.
come back with some sort of support design with bracket or something like that for administrative approval.
Second?
This has conservation and enhancement of property values and has relation to historic and architectural value of the existing structure. Thank you for coming, even though just a portion of your house is in the historic district.
Thank you so much.
All right, all those in favor,
Oh,
say.
hey, I have a question.
I'm
Yeah.
But we've closed the public
Oh,
hearing.
oh,
and-
okay.
Is the question to the applicant? Or-
No, it's okay. We're voting on
Yeah,
this now.
that's fine.
She can't speak at this point. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And against? Okay, so you have your approval.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
I'm sorry, Karen, you should have got that in.
Yeah, no, I was busy reading. Is that a wood window, that Matthews brother? That's a wood window, right? No? It's a vinyl clad?
It's for the bathroom, he was explaining.
Okay. And it has a full screen? Okay. It's the back of the house. We don't care. Okay.
I didn't get that.
But yes, you're, good point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Request for a break?
Yeah, why not?
Yes.
Yeah.
5 minutes?
Two.
wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, replacement windows, and new construction to an existing structure, add new window canopy system and exterior lighting, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on our Assessor Map 107 as Lot 81, lies within Character District 5, Downtown Overlay and Historic District. So who is here to present this? Replacement?
Good evening. Brandon Holben with Winter Holben Architecture and Design.
Detail than I get. Am I doing it wrong? Because this is what I
Okay.
get from
So
my-
for this, so the goal, so we did the slash.
Summary,
Dan?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the work session slash public hearing, we had asked to do that with the goal of trying to get the windows voted on at a minimum tonight. That was sort of the goal. And then just to review the concept of the canopies and the lighting, that we would come back for that next month for public hearing. So that was kind of the goal, was to split, get some feedback, initial feedback on canopy lighting, and then if the windows are good, that we could go forward and vote on those.
So we are in a work session in a way here.
Yeah, so however you want to do it.
But I certainly don't need to go down there for
Yeah,
this.
we can keep it this way if that works.
Yeah. But what do you have for us on these windows? Do you have pictures of them falling apart and being rotted and you can't use them? And what's going on here?
It's a lot of single pane glazing. They're
Yeah,
70s era windows that are in there. So the owner, they don't work very well. Most of them don't open. So they're trying to get,
Are they really all 70s windows?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. There's no original windows.
Yeah.
That's for sure, yeah.
Sure.
They're kind of like cheaper wooden windows.
Have you surveyed them all?
I have,
Yeah.
and there's two original windows.
Two original?
On the side facing where the fire
Fire station, port,
station, no,
Chapel Street.
facing,
Church
I
Street.
guess the church, facing the church, the north side.
Oh,
Oh,
And it's like on the third level.
Oh,
And they
the-
are,
behind the
there
fire
was
escape.
three, there's two now because they have put a door in there for the fire escape.
Yeah.
And those
that
two are
that's a
probably
new fill.
original windows that have the weight things, and they have the sash pulleys. But all the other windows, except the ones on the,
Yeah, right, because the middle one you can't get to because it's in the stairwell.
Yeah,
It was up
you
too
can-
high, so we
yeah,
didn't
you
get to
gotta
that one. And then you
get
got
to
the
it.
other, actually, yes, those are the two we couldn't access. So that.
they're probably the two original. The rest are actually double paned,
Yeah, there,
but
yeah, there were a couple that were
replacement
single.
windows from probably.
Yeah, some may have been broken and there were single infills, but yeah, thin insulated windows.
they're insulated glass, but, from the street, I see them as, really divided light windows. I mean, you can see the muntins on them.
Yeah, they are.
I don't understand.
You don't understand?
I don't understand that they are replacement windows. They're not simulated divided light, which has
Correct.
been around for 10, 15 years now, which is what we insist on if somebody convinces us that they want to go with that type of window. So what type of window are they? I guess that's the question. You say they're insulated glass.
Yeah, so they're wood frame, true divided light.
Because from the street, I'm looking up and seeing big 6/6 windows.
Yeah. I think
I'm wrong.
No, you're right. They're
Yep.
6/6, but
Yep.
they're insulated glass. They're two paned.
So what's on the outside of this? Do they just have a?
They're lights.
Huh?
They're lights. They're small.
They're insulated, they're separate insulated.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
kidding.
Well, they're kind of big windows, and they
Oh,
are
no,
just
the-
6/6s. So the lights are pretty big,
Yeah.
but they're not solid one piece.
So do you think these are a handmade windows that somebody actually placed a piece of thermopane glass?
It would take some time.
yes.
I'd need.
Certainly would.
I'd need to look at it for a couple of hours before I could answer that question. It looked to me like someone rehabbed some existing windows. They would have had to recut the depth for the rabbet for the glass.
Yeah.
But they looked like sash older than the technology of that kind of window. I don't, I'm sorry, I honestly, from reading this, did not have an idea as to how far or how thorough this thing was going, and I did not go inside.
Yeah.
This is a valuable building.
Sure, yeah, agreed.
There's no question.
Yeah, and the windows, when you look at the windows, they do look cheap. I mean, they don't look like good quality windows, that's all. So however it was done, to us, it felt like the 70s, so we didn't spend a ton of time because they didn't look like they were well done, good quality craftsmanship, so we left it at that, and said these are worthy of replacement.
I'd like to see them, but.
Yeah.
I'll just say, I think one of the things that the current windows do capture is that the muttons are very thin, and so they're very elegant looking windows.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's my fear. I was trying to figure out from the replacement window specs just how thick the muttons are, because it's hard to get them really historically
the
thin.
True accuracy. The
Yeah.
depth of it is, they usually get the width right, but the depth is
Right.
usually not quite the same.
Well, yeah. And I guess, I don't know if,
We looked at Green Mountain, and they were having trouble with the sizes of
Yeah.
these. They wanted to split them into two windows, so that was, that would have been.
yeah, no.
So we kind of left that where it was.
Did you find any options where they're all wood, even though they would be insulated? We would have a wood exterior as well?
Yeah, there were some options for that.
Reserves.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Just because I think, again, this is such a focal and precious building in our downtown. I'd hate to see a
Some
clad
manufacturers
window.
have better screen options. So we had it narrowed down to a
Yeah.
few, and then we looked at the different screen options, and because of the size, some couldn't do it, and some had to do custom options.
How about just no screens?
That's kind of, the owner was probably, he's like, it's probably okay with no screens down here. Yeah, and you can probably do something as a temporary screen from the inside if you need to,
Yeah.
if you end up having issues, but that might be the way he goes, is just no screens. If we can't do an interior screen option, we're trying to get one with a track on the inside that we can kind of slide up and down to operate and
Why
have the
can't you
option.
do an interior screen?
Yeah,
A pull down?
yeah, so that's, it would have to be a track on the inside, right? And the
Yeah.
screen slides up and down, but some had trouble with the size of that screen. Some of
Well,
the wider windows are a challenge, some of
Anybody
these.
who's challenged by the screen would be challenged by the window.
Yeah. We're all like, we can make the windows, but the screen.
These
is another-
windows are 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yes, Margot.
I would say, I think the windows here are so important that I would not be able to make a decision based on what we've been
What's
given
here?
today without some kind of true survey of the condition of each of the windows, some opinion from somebody who knows old windows much better than I do. If David or somebody were able to take a look at them and say, no, these things dated from this time or they date from that time, because I think they are just such a focal part of this building.
Well-
So if you're looking for an opinion on the windows tonight, I personally would not be able to give that to you.
Okay.
So, Dan, when did you look at these windows?
The door was open, so I walked in and walked through the building. No one was there, just yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. And they actually are, full thickness, and I thought in pretty good shape. Now, they probably didn't paint it over, and I'm not sure they open or close well, but they were not, deteriorating windows. The only two original windows I could find was
Yeah.
at one wall, and those are single pane and falling apart.
Next time you break into a building like that, give me a call.
We'll make sure the owner knows.
Okay, so this, they also want to discuss some lighting. And, So I feel that the windows are, we definitely need to have a site walk.
Get more info.
We need more info, yeah.
The survey.
Yeah, we can do a more detailed survey
Yeah,
and schedule a site walk.
yeah, because
Yeah.
a
You
lot
got-
of people are uncomfortable with this.
You got lighting in the awnings left.
What else do you have?
All right. Well, skip to the, let's see, a couple things here. So let me just skip to A 2.0. It's the north elevation proposed.
A.
So just a couple notes on the,
A 2.0.
A. 2 point.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, this is the elevation. So those upper windows, the two on the left are the ones you were talking about being original.
Jesus.
Daniel?
Yeah,
Is that
right here.
Yes,
The two
yeah,
upper
those
left,
two are
right.
original,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the third is a fire escape door.
Yeah, and one thing we are hoping to do, we're working on the egress and the uses right now and trying to restore some of the egress in the building to eliminate this fire escape. So that's, hopefully we'll be coming back with that getting removed and that window getting replaced is the goal of the interior part of the building here. But we're not there yet, so it's still there.
What do you feel about fire escapes, Reagan? Historic?
Removal of yeah, how historic.
That's important.
I mean, it's a consideration.
Yeah, is that a character defining feature of the building?
She's for it.
Depends on when they're
Tripartite
installed.
design, yeah. So,
Could you, with regard to the
What else?
canopies?
yeah, so on the canopies, so you can see, yeah, so on that A 2.0, you can see the profile of the canopy to the left. I'll just kind of breeze through some of these, and then when you go to the next sheet, you'll see the
Booklights.
Pleasant Street elevation. And what we've done here, we sort of have.
Take the mic with you.
Yep, need the mic. No,
No.
no, you need the mic.
mic.
You can take that mic out.
Yeah. There you go.
Here we go. So along the front, so we did one larger at the common, the primary entry here to the retail and the book and bar, as well as the retail office space. And we're looking at creating an emergency egress over here. So this would be a new door added in here as well, which originally was a door on the original building. You'll see in some of that where the stair used to come down, it's been blocked off. There was a door there historically, so we're looking at restoring the original door on that corner. But you can see the symmetry of that with the staircase reaching across. That obviously was 3 doors there. And if you look at the we have some Library of Congress archive drawings of the original hand drawings of the building.
What is it now? A window or?
Yeah, this is a window here.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, it had been filled in at one point when they got rid of the stair and they put a window in. And that's probably the same time they were doing windows in the building, I imagine. But, so yeah, we have one kind of primary canopy and then we have some individual ones. And the goal with the canopy design here was to kind of do a sort of multi-purpose element that is kind of protecting the stairs, the egress, creating a profile to the building where utilizing that for new kind of building sign standard. You can see some of these panels that drop down. There'll be a series of panels under the canopies. We talked about maybe integrating some lighting. There might be some building identity elements on the canopy that we'll show some examples of further in the set here. So we're looking at it and trying, we kept the height of the canopy. We wanted to lower it so it didn't impact the top of the arch so much. So we looked at some heavier canopy ideas that might have been something that you would have seen on this type of building at the time. And then we kind of came back to this kind of lighter approach that was a little less evasive to the building, but still kind of improved it for the current uses.
I don't understand these canopies.
Let's see, the next page is looking at the State Street elevation here, which shows one small canopy over that. This is sort of the patio access for book and bar out to the.
Is there anybody that can explain what's going on with these canopies? 'Cause
There's more images, so.
I'm not getting it.
Okay, keep listening. All right.
I
And
am listening, but I'm not
There's-
getting,
Farther in there are renderings.
there are renderings.
yeah, we're getting to those.
A6,
A23, you'll see there's another canopy on this side. We've got the ramp coming up the side, and that's your accessible access to the building.
So these are flat roofs that are
It's,
just hung by rods?
they're glass, yeah. So we're
They're
looking
glass.
at glass
Okay.
canopies with metal frame glass canopies that are anchored at the jambs as well as the rods.
I think it's superfluous.
You'll see A5.0 next. So this is just giving some detail on so the first level, you have this textural base to the building, so with the grooved stone. And then as you go up to the upper levels, you get the smoother block facade for the body of the building, which you'll see on 5.1. This is just giving some detail on the profiling of the existing facade and just showing where the window lies in that wall elevation, how far back from the facade it sits. 5.2, saying this is third floor, typical third floor. You can see the simplicity of the detail as it gets higher here. And 5.3 shows a little more detail on the canopy. You'll see that kind of overlap at the jambs. So we have some fastening at the jambs, and then we also have the rod that'll anchor in above.
The railing new?
The railing is the railings are new. Yes.
So that's not there.
There are some railings there, but we're looking to improve those.
Replace them.
Yep. And I think we're adding, at the new door, we're adding a railing there where there isn't one. Renderings. So again, you can see here, this shows it well, the texture difference going from the base of the building up to the body, which is kind of a nice feature.
So you're replacing all the doors? You replace?
Yes. That's proposed. So again, yeah, you can see the metal framing, the glass canopy. The goal here, again, kind of lowering the height of that, exposing the arch of the window head, and then the transparency of the glass is really showing off the building from the street view. You're still getting to view the facade through the glass canopy.
Anybody got any questions or?
Storefront window, yeah, so we kept a couple single light windows at the storefront on each side of the main door, which was existing, and it was a goal to sort of keep the simple storefront there, so we went with kind of keeping just a simple single glazed opening that similar to what exists now at those locations, just for window graphics and things like that. And yeah, so you can see the door type A and B. Next sheet. We've got the reserve line details shown here. And then on the lights, so this is a aluminum pulse light. It's commonly used for these types of buildings. There's different size lights you can get. It's has different light level controls, so we can do a kind of a lower level warm light, which is what we're looking at here, like a 2200 Kelvin warm white. And we were looking at, instead of placing these, well, yeah, if you go to, we can go back to a couple images after this.
After?
Before or after?
Yeah, okay, well, let's pop back to the elevations. You'll see the locations of those lights on the elevations. If you look at the Pleasant Street elevation, or either one of the long ones shows it well. So you can see the little light box indicated. We don't have any lights on this side of the building.
There aren't here? Yeah, they're right here.
Oh, yeah, there are there, yeah. Each side, we have them sort of between the windows, is what we're here. And we're trying to project up and down.
These are pointing up.
And down.
Yeah, on the building. So we're trying to capture the profiling of facade up and down. So we wanted to kind of light both sides so you weren't getting too many
How do you-
shadows one or the other.
You have a rather large cornice there on the top of the first floor.
Well, that's why they're on the top and the
Projecting.
bottom.
Huh?
They're up here, under the soffit, and they're here. So these ones go up, they go down.
Right, you got it.
They meet at that.
Oh, so these lights are really
All
just
lights.
lighting the second and third
Oh,
floor?
I understand.
Correct. Yes, this light is
Generally.
shooting up here.
Mhm.
So it's going to catch all of the relief of this profiling, right, as it aims up, and then the lights above will hit the inverse of that, so you're not getting too many shadows up or down. And then, yeah,
This is the.
yeah. Probably this top left is more accurate, right? We're going to have lights here kind of shooting up and then some lights pointing down. So it's a soft, warm light hitting just the building. That's the goal, is to kind of create that effect. If you go back one, too, I just wanted to show you one other image.
Can you change the color of the light?
There's some of them you can. So that
should.
Yeah, I know. So that's the goal. This one, I think, this line.
You can.
Yeah, there's some that can be full, like
LEDs,
RGB kind of. Yeah.
Can you at least change like the warmth or something?
Yeah,
to
this
it?
one has the warmth, but I think they have another option that has the full RGB. I think we just, yeah. So
So is there
seasonally,
any-
they could do something interesting like
Is there
that.
any way you could give us a representation of what this building is going to look like?
With lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. Yeah.
Even more to the point, is there an opportunity before we actually make a final vote on this to see a light temporarily, duct taped, one at the top and one at the bottom and turned
Yeah,
on?
we can get a sample and we can probably put it up there.
Hopefully that doesn't sound too silly, but
No, we can probably actually wire it. Yeah, we can
this is a
plug it
pretty
in.
dramatic move.
Yeah,
for us.
the light guys have samples of that. We can plug it in and actually set it up at night.
Do a mock-up.
Take some pictures. Yeah, yeah. Do a mock-up. Sure, that's probably better than trying to model this in to a 3D model.
Be more real.
Yeah. Yeah, this was sort of what we were talking about with the canopy. The idea of sort of
You
this
can get a word in and.
added element to the historic building. So it's obviously a newer added canopy, but it's still showing off the character of the
Okay, Margot,
building
do
above.
you have a question?
So, well, you've led right into my question and my heartburn, which is these canopies.
Yeah, I
So,
second that.
I heard you say that you wanted them to be simple. You wanted people to be able to see the arches through them, which is why you chose glass, and you dropped them down because you wanted people to be able to see the arch over it. And you've given us some inspiration pictures.
Yep.
Canopy precedent number 2. Zooming in, that's a very ornate canopy.
Heavy canopy, yep.
I find, interestingly, that I find this building to be, at least on the lower level, more similar to the subject building versus the one in the lower left, precedent 3, where you've got a very simple, clean-lined canopy on a very simple, clean-lined brick backdrop. So I'm not sure that you've convinced me that the style you've chosen for this building is right, the placement is appropriate, and why we would even do it in the first place.
Thank you.
Given the way this building looks right now, and that historically it has not had canopies.
Well, there were some canopies. You can, some of the historic photos. You can see some of the beautiful
Are you referring to
shed
the
canopies.
awnings?
Yeah.
Those were awnings.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a permanent, drilled in.
Oh no, there was a
Where?
permanent structure built around all the stairs because it must have been ice that was shooting off. They made these. They look
Oh,
like
you mean the little
the
like,
tunnels. They were little tunnels you walk through.
Those that looked like they should have a beefeater from England standing inside.
Actually,
I think
yeah.
we should just ignore those.
Hey, it was
So
part of the history.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why we would drill canopies into this building at all.
it's just like drilling a sign into the building. I mean, we can drill signs. You can see the signs drilled all through the building. So we're trying to create some order to the facade, which is one of the problems with the building right now. Is the signage system is just wacky, and it's kind of degrading the quality of the building.
You're going to have to wait for a spot.
Yeah, I just want to second what Margot said, which is you've got a perfectly proportioned, gorgeous, classical, iconic building, and you feel that way because you feel that you can even light it up so that we can appreciate the perfection. And why you would want to put drill into this building, and B, put in awnings that are not, I think it's an aberration to put awnings. And there have been thriving businesses in this building for a while, and the signage that they've had has been adequate for them.
Sure, there's probably a few broken butts walking down those stairs.
Well, I certainly think you should put up railings, no doubt about it. I've
Just protecting from water. I mean, that's something that's functionally they're going to do.
No, I'm just adamantly opposed to putting awnings, certainly ones that look like that. This is a classic building. It stands alone. To me, it's just mucking it up.
Reagan?
I actually have the opposite opinion. I really don't mind these canopies. If you wanted to put on fabric awnings that are historically appropriate, I think that would be fine too. But
you could just replace the ones that are there, right?
These are light. They don't, a fabric canopy would be much more imposing on the doorways and the windows and the whole design of the building. So, I think that you could even lighten them up a little bit. They do seem, some of the side bracing seems a bit heavy. I don't know if it's possible structurally, but to even make them a little bit lighter and more delicate. But they're glass, and they're in my mind, they're actually quite small for what we're doing here. I mean, that thing is a lovely, beautiful, historic, ornate canopy, but would not be appropriate on this building because it's way too big.
Yeah, we started with one of those and got away from it quickly.
Yeah, that's original, so that it works. I agree. I think a canopy would be a nice pedestrian feature for this building, and I think there were canopies, awnings, and things that made this thing added to the quality of this building, and it'd be good to go back. It needs to be just dialed down by half because it's so heavy in its own construction. It's doing most of it's holding itself up. Those steel sections and everything. I think you can go with something very lighter and more elegant.
Yep.
Maybe something more chrome and more tasteful. These are good, but I don't think they're quite right. Now, as for the windows, I think we've still got to work on that. Maybe even a steel window that is traditional looking, and I don't mean a Conair, I mean like a Hope product steel window with the very thin muttons. As for the lighting, that's always going to be difficult because some of the examples you've shown were a little too garish, I think. And I would dial those down too. But those are my comments.
Can I just add one more thing? Does everybody really think you should drill into this building to put up awnings?
There's already
So many
drill
holes.
holes in it.
There are?
And
People drill into
you
buildings.
patch them. I mean, they can be properly patched. Not all patching is equal, but.
This building really suffers from a history of ferric attack. Carbon steel fasteners put into this building in every different dimension. Stone in the stairs are breaking around the railings. It's not the holes. I don't think they're pretty, but it's not the holes. It's the crap that they leave behind in them. we can do better these days. There's affordable stainless steel, which doesn't have to not just make a hole, but continue to provide a future of damage. And I hope that that would be a part of any proposal. Sorry, I just...
Oh, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, again, so the canopies are concepts, so we develop it further, we would have much more detail on how that gets done.
I'm willing to see other alternatives, other options.
Rich, hands up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think this building's obviously very important. It's very, central or historic district in downtown. I'm having trouble with the awnings. I just feel like we're adding a modern awning to a grand old building that, is I don't feel like it's appropriate. I'm excited about the lighting. I think the lighting is going to celebrate the building and celebrate its, the great architectural features that it does have and that are original. I'm not the window expert up here, but those are my comments.
Yeah. Is anybody else?
Just to clarify, there are buildings, offices on the second floor, so the door is open. The third floor, which says elevator only, I went up, because it said use the elevator, not the stairs. And that's where you got view of all the windows, because they're redoing everything, and you can walk through all the beautiful old courtyard and lawyer things and see all the windows.
Do you have a badge, by the way?
From the city.
I don't know what happened to the badges, but...
Oh, that badge, yes.
We were all issued badges.
I have a badge. Yeah.
You probably should wear that. Once somebody, applies to the historic district, we do have a right to look at the building and go on the property, not necessarily in the property, but unless somebody is there. But, we do have that right.
Right, and again, there are active offices.
Yeah, it is a public building.
There's a beautiful inside, too.
We appreciate your insight. Well, I remember when it was the post office still, before it became Dick Levy's Automotive. So at this point, we're trying to give him some opinion as far as this work session goes. And I'm seeing that there's some split on the canopies. There are a couple people that, appreciate putting a modern canopy on a historic Italian 1860 structure. And there are some people for the lighting. I get the feeling that there might be more support for your lighting.
Okay.
Windows, I believe that
have a
there's a
site
lot
walk.
of heartburn on the windows.
We should have a sidewalk for that, for sure.
This is one that I really do feel that we should get a few people and look at these.
And I would love to know what other replacement options you've found and considered too.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
rather than just one, maybe give us several.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So are these windows black or green? Are they dark green or black? The
They're
windows?
either or.
Oh, but I mean now.
They're green now.
They're green now, yeah.
Yeah. We were just showing them as black.
Well, it's, so I guess that's it, isn't it?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I didn't break into the awnings. I think I would go along with Mr. Ryan on his, that a modern kind of awning unit may make a bit of excitement for the building, may be more practical in the long run than the canvas-like materials that are ooping inside, of which a couple still exist.
Yeah.
But the idea of putting them across the openings, to me, is a non-starter.
Yeah.
It's sort of, give it a metaphor here, like drawing a mustache on the Mona Lisa. I'm not saying that there can't be a mustache in the painting, but
Yeah, it's just,
putting
they
it
get
right-
so high up. The problem is, it's like,
just not far enough.
yeah, if
It
it's
can
up
go
high,
higher.
it needs to come out so much farther to actually work. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
It's a challenge.
Strange.
Yeah.
Halfway, actually.
I agree that the location of the awnings is certainly a heartburn.
Yeah, they're about 10 feet up
Must be 9-foot windows, makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess we need a motion for continuance.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Hopefully you can figure this all out.
Yeah, sure. Somebody will.
Should we go down for a work session?
No, let's just stay here.
Yeah.
Do you want to go down?
No.
It's not like
Which one?
seen this site plans before.
1 minute of 10.
Next?
Which
Are
one
you
is
next?
it?
Yeah, we're
Supposed to- oh.
Owners are here too. We can stand up here. I'll sit there. Islington.
This
Oh,
one.
I'm
The
sorry,
last-
okay.
Yeah.
361.
Last one.
Okay, work session requested by Lucky 13 Properties LLC owner for property located at 361 Islington Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, add side and rear additions, and renovations to an existing structure, new siding, windows, and mechanical screening as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 144, is Lot 23, lies within Character District 4-L2 and Historic Districts. Here we go.
Sorry to make you guys all move.
I need to get my steps in.
You guys already caused some problems.
Just a little heads up when you speak, keep an eye on where the microphone is.
I always get yelled at.
Well, I'm not going to say we're not going to yell at you.
She'll yell at me back there.
One right here.
The Getty.
Good old Getty.
How come we have so many people for a gas station?
All right, so yeah, Brandon Holben with Winter Holben, and Robert here is an architect with Winter Holben as well.
I'm Jeff Dyer and Sean Crilly.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
It's informal. You got these microphone things here, you might have to
Talk to
pull
this
them a
guy.
little bit towards you. Yeah. You don't need to do that. Okay.
So I think Sean and myself we've lived in town for a while now, and we've kind of driven by this spot, and it's right for the, I don't know, something new to come along. It's one of the last, I think, properties that I know of anyway in that area that really needs some love. Maybe the one behind it, but it all is in good use. I think Sean, general idea here, wants to.
Oh, I have to talk?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the building now, it has that big call whatever sign on it. So one day we just did that. The goal here is really, I don't know. I don't know how many people have walked by that place and said, like, it could be something cool. I mean, general novices here, to be completely honest with you. But at the same time, sort of have I think we're the only people dumb enough to buy it and renovate it, and I think that's what we're going to do. So we worked with
Several iterations.
Exactly. Sorry. Well, I mean, hopefully the first people get over the finish line, but we'll figure that out. I don't know what you guys want to hear, other than I think we all realize this place could use some love because the previous owner has sort of let it sit there for 10 years. So it would be nice to sort of make it a better place, I guess.
We just want to go over the plans, that's all.
Okay, fine.
That's all we do.
Gonna make some really good bagels.
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, okay, all right, thanks a lot.
So, the Getty. So we think it's probably early 50s. I can find a Sanborn map of 56 showed it there, so it seems like about that vintage, kind of 50s gas station prototype. That was probably spread around to multiple locations, but definitely that era of modern architecture that we all love. And
You love.
it's a couple of us.
Don't you love that building?
I do like the building.
Yeah.
I do. So that's, yeah, we're back at it here. And yes, the goal is to sort of transform this and create it was a former outdoor food truck, I think most recently was the most recent use, and turn it into a full-service restaurant with indoor and outdoor seating. And looking to add to the vitality of Islington Street here with the addition of the public gathering space and some added green space. Right now, I think it's 100% impervious, so we'll actually have some green space on the property, and looking to be a little more conforming with the zoning, not quite all the way. So we are working towards some variances as well that we're in the process of going through Board of Adjustment with that. So we're looking to construct a small addition on the west of the existing structure, and that's in that large garage door to the west, kind of facing the apartments. We're looking to kind of infill that with an addition, pop it out just a little bit to create some nice indoor seating there, and kind of cut down on that, any acoustic issues between the residences next door. And also looking to an addition on the north, which is to the back side of the building, and that's going to be additional kitchen space and accessible bathrooms, and create a little more of a buffer between the neighboring properties. Yeah, we're going to alter that existing canopy, so again, the outdoor seating, which is all paved, will sort of create green space and patio space out there. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, landscaping, planters will be constructed in green space and planting areas, which you'll see in the site plans coming up. Existing windows will be mostly all replaced. I think they're all getting replaced at this point. And there's some wood and metal cladding will be used over portions of the existing concrete block, and then other areas of the concrete block will be painted. And then there'll be a new retaining wall on the back of the property between the residential neighborhood there, which will also work as a screen the parking from the residential neighborhood, which is one of the requirements of the buffer zone there.
Let's get to it. So
Yeah, right. Existing,
Look at it.
existing building. You know this
Make a
guy.
little comment.
Everyone knows this guy. All right. Existing site plan. This is probably one of the last applications that went through there, I think, for the food truck. See what that is. It's got 9, maybe 12 parking spots I think it's showing here. And a lot of, they kind of blocked off some of the curb cuts with planters in that scheme. Existing plan. The building is pretty much how it was when it was last used as a garage. So we're looking to redo the interior. Obviously, the exterior here. Existing elevations. And then we're looking A 1.0 is the site plan provided by Altus Engineering. And you'll see the darker orange are the proposed additions. Lighter yellow orange is the existing building. The brown is the existing canopy, how much that covers there. And then see the paving's getting reworked a bit and adding green space. There's some requirements at the corner for green space, so we're doing that where that existing sign is. Completely blocking off the one curb cut near Cabot on Islington with green strip. And some.
So do people drive around this building? Is that?
You can, yeah. If you pull in on Islington Street, so they didn't want to have this dead end where you had to do a 3-point turn to get out. So we ended up. This was the safest bet. We had a pre-TAC work session, and this was sort of what came out of that.
There's also an existing easement.
Oh,
to
right.
That you have to
the left, yeah. So the neighbors access their parking through this driveway. So we have to keep that driveway because of the easement, even if we really wanted to get rid of it. So that easement's there. You can see that dashed in. One-way access around the building here. We've got some moped parking. Those little mini striped spaces there. 5 moped spots. Got the tote trash enclosures, recycling in the back corner there. Good, easy access. We're getting
The only way in and out of the building from under the canopy?
There's a rear exit.
The only way for people, civilians?
Yep. And we're looking to potentially open up some of that canopy, so it's more of a trellis that you walk under the entrance, and then the covered part will be the patio. So you'll see that in some of the renderings. There's sort of a covered section that's, say, here, and we're looking to kind of leave the framing but remove the panels on part of it, so it's more of a trellis that you're walking under, open air trellis to get in. So it's a little more inviting, more daylight getting in.
You know, way out of my league here, but I saw a photograph of a dining area in a cruise ship that has a pretty, hard stop ceiling in it.
Yeah.
And they had done some
So
wooden
it's no
tracery
roof at all?
across it,
Oh,
and
I
it
see.
gave it volume.
Nice, yeah, like that.
That's, when I was there today, I'm looking up there thinking, this is big, and it's tall,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it doesn't feel like it has volume.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think you've seen some of the renderings maybe too, where we peel that back and expose some of that structure. I think that's going to create a little more of the open air feel too, which will be nice on part of it, and won't feel quite so expansive with that surface. That was part of the goal of peeling that back, as well as making it more inviting.
When you peel that back, does that mean it's completely open to the sky, or are you changing the roof so that it's clear versus?
So the way those canopies are built, the steel is sort of exposed. It's a Core 10 steel, most of those, so it's a rusted steel. And they have panels that just attach to the bottom. And the top of those soffit panels actually drains the water out. There's not much of a roof above that.
So if you're sitting underneath one of these open sections and it rains, you get wet, or you do
Yeah,
not?
you do. Yeah. So part of it will be covered, and part of it will be open air.
Tension that comes along with a good meal.
But if you're sitting there and it's sunny out, you'll get sun.
You're really happy.
If you want sun, or if you want shade, you go under the shade.
Is there any sage advice to be passed as far as siding materials and exterior covering materials? They're going to be doing quite a bit of that. We went round and round with the Dunkin' Donuts people over that, and just wondering if any of that could be provided.
And we ended up with, what, clapboard type of hardy siding and hardy flat panels?
That would might be appropriate with this building style, given the 50s vintage era of it. So we're trying to be consistent with the character of the existing building.
Kind of difficult.
Oh, yeah, it's an interesting pattern of materials here we're working with.
I'd like to see,
So we do
metal with porcelain
So there-
coverings.
We have some wood chip lap we're using.
From the
right?
1950s,
So around the entries, that entry element, the glazed element, we have wood chip lap kind of wrapping around the corner there. And then between the garage bays, we're looking at a little more of an industrial metal material in some limited areas.
So in the winter, there'll be six.
Closed.
6. I mean, I guess, how many tables are actually inside? It's like just 6. Most of it's outside. Yeah.
It's not too many tables. Essentially, I think it's like 44 seats inside.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
And the remaining outside. I mean, the idea, kind of, a lot of the businesses come and go, so.
Yeah, takeout.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it'll work.
Yeah, enough parking to have some takeout with the street and.
You look at the kitchen and,
Like
they
Lexi's
take
or-
out people going in and out all the time.
Yep.
Well, is anybody,
I like where you're going. I think that unlike the Dunkin' Donuts building, which was something put in, it was just industrial without style. I think this building has an iconic 50s style to it. You can look at it and say, that was built in the 50s. You couldn't really do that with the Dunkin' Donuts building. So I think using that as your jumping off point and continuing to work on how can we clean it up, jazz it up without losing that feel. I think you've done a great start here. I would just keep developing it and honing in on the exact materials and products that you want to use to achieve that feel.
Yeah, and we're showing most of that here too as well, which I think is pretty successful.
That's really great.
Yeah, huge improvement. Yeah, so we're showing, we've got all the materials here on 8-9, show the wood plank, the roof screen elements for the mechanical coming out of the kitchen, the metal cladding materials, patio lighting, the garage doors, the folding counter windows, so everything's.
You're thinking of a lot of individual, smaller lighting rather than large pieces of lighting, although there are some big lighting panels in the canopy. Are those going to get lost?
I think those are going away, likely, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about, more patio-type string lights, potentially.
Yeah, that
across
was
there.
the conversation. That's-
Yeah, so the lighting still needs a little bit of work. Got some concepts going there.
So the open trellis area is, you're essentially just using what's existing, the metal. Are you adding any wood strips to it somehow or another to make, or is it just the metal that is there now?
For the big canopy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of using that and
You're just using that.
refurbishing, repairing, painting, yeah.
You need to hang some floaters in that.
Yeah, something to kind of fill in that volume, but I think that the lighting can do that too, kind of a lower level of lighting, kind of using the structural elements, sort of crisscross and layer of string lighting there will help with what you're referring to.
So somebody had told me that there's some historic, I haven't been walked the property, but there's a rather large tree on the property itself. Is that your tree? Is there any way?
There's a tree on the back of the
there it
property
is.
line.
The one in the back.
It's on the other side of the
Yeah,
guardrail.
that shows on the site plan too, I think.
Yeah.
I think the guardrail goes into it.
It looks like it might.
Yeah, it goes like right up to it. It's like the tree's like, yeah.
Because this tree, I mean, I can see the tree from the other side of the mill pond. This is, there are white flowers on it in May or June or something. Is it a horse chestnut? It's a red. Oh, red? Red oak. Oh, maybe this isn't the one. There's one.
That was a good story, though.
It was a good story.
It's a big tree. I was thinking, how?
Anyways, I'm hoping that you can,
We're saving the tree.
stress to your contractors, and this is something that other boards might speak about also, to
It's in the driveway. Joe.
try to save the thing.
Yeah, it's got
The only way it stays is if the addition's smaller.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's in the driveway.
Terrible.
I mean, yeah, it's like whether you could.
I think you're 2 feet inboard.
But I would agree with further comments that, in essence, you have a better building here than the Dunkin' Donuts building. And, God, we really had a lot of trouble with that. But I think a lot of it might have been the colors, pink and orange.
Color scheme.
Pink and orange.
Yeah.
But I think that, you're respecting this building, and so far, it looks pretty good. I think it's going to be a good addition.
I was excited by previous plans, and I'm excited by this one. I think exactly what Margot said is that it is a building with a modern style that is obvious, and you're continuing with that, so I think that's appropriate for this. And I'm glad that you're keeping the canopy and really embracing what the building is and just bringing it back to life. So I think it'll be a welcome addition to the streetscape, even though it's very different from everything around it. I think it's going to be
Still a major improvement from what's there.
a huge improvement.
I agree. One concern I would have is that you want to avoid it coming off as a brand-new Cumberland Farms or something. And I think you can do that.
All in
but
alignment there.
You got a lot of height with this canopy. You might want to find some kind of elements to bring that height down to make that space out front a little more appealing. Because you're going to open it up, it's going to make it even less sort of sheltering, and I would be concerned with birds and that kind of thing. But anyway, I don't think there are too many things you can do to this that aren't going to improve it.
Wow. Don't hold back the praise.
The broom would help.
Setting the bar real low for us.
Well, and the whole gamut of buildings.
As long as we can hop over it, so now.
I mean, being perfectly honest, when this was constructed, this was a larger gas station. It was it had 2 doors and such.
Three doors.
Yeah,
The
so
big
it was-
service bay is huge.
I'm very excited you guys are taking on this project, and I love that you're telling a story, right? Like you can tell what it used to be, and you're keeping that story in what you're doing with it. My friend Megan Kane grew up right next to this building, so I spent a lot of time there, and I don't think I've ever known it to be open in my lifetime.
I know what you're saying.
So I'm very excited. I love the idea of the fact that you can tell it was a gas station before, and now you've repurposed it. And I will reiterate that.
This is the hip thing to do.
Yeah, I've seen this done out. I used to live out in Tahoe, and I've seen this done in like Truckee, with the old, gas stations, and they turn into an apparel store or a restaurant, and it works. It works. I love it.
Okay. So, we've all given you some opinions, and you've given us your ideas. And
Yeah, so we'll work on
Sounds like you're very
some
close.
details and some revisions and.
Yeah.
We do have public.
Yes.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
We did.
Wait a minute.
So I have to, it's Elizabeth, I'll tell you when I get up there.
She does more homework than all of us combined.
Sorry, it's paper today, Adam.
Do you have this stuff?
You should have two different things if I get this right.
All righty.
Service station. Wooden service station.
Gas station.
And try it. We can.
Thank you very much.
Or should I give them one?
This is very nice. All of the gas stations.
Wow.
Shell? The Shell?
I'll take one too.
So the Shell station on there?
Yep.
Nice photo of that one.
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't find anything of this in that thing.
This has been a long haul.
That's quite a sportsman's coupe right there.
Yeah.
Pictures of
Oh, appreciate it.
grandparents.
Elizabeth Bradder, property owner of 159 McDonough Street. 159 McDonough Street is 1 block away from this gas station. I walked by this gas station for 35 years. I've gotten gas there. I've known the people who've owned the gas station. I can tell you that there are a few things wrong with this whole thing. We've had, so what I'm going to want you to look at is this. And Nick, if you could bring up page 239. So the first thing was supposed to be my letter that I forgot to submit. And the second stuff is some stuff I was going to show you when I spoke, but we're going to do it a little bit different this way. So the reason I bring you the design plans is if you look on this page, the second page, you can see the design plan from 2021. And you'll notice that they added a 92-foot addition on the left side. They're proposing putting a 73-foot addition on the left side. But you'll notice that there's a 32-foot setback between the property line and the building on the 2021 plan, which was a different group of people. But now there's only 12 feet 5 inches. You'll also notice that there were 5 parking spaces back there, and now there's none. So that's first thing. The other thing I want you to notice is I'm that attention to detail person, as you guys know. That's why my letters are always so long. And there are no actual sizes of how big the existing thing is and what they're proposing. It just tells you they're adding on 692 feet, but they don't tell you how big it is to start with. This is the third restaurant to try to get in here, and a small restaurant is permitted by CD4L2. It can't be fast food or takeout only. If you review the I already told you this part, but there were 5 spaces that they could be used for snow storage or a dumpster setback. The seating capacity shown far exceeds the 50 allowed in CD4L2. And the outer deck is likely to be used from April to November unless heat is added. You know, people add those little heat lamps and they put an umbrella up and all of a sudden you can sit outside. They're proposing over 100 people and staff, which is far too many for the structure when you consider what is next to this. This gas station is surrounded by residential units. There is one lawyer's office, and I mean a small lawyer's office across the street, and there's an appraisal, and then there's a little, I think right now it's a T-shirt shop.
Liz, you must remember, we're the historic district.
I know that, I'm just telling you this.
I understand that, but what you're you should be saving, what you're
Some of this,
telling
but
us.
I know. But you guys look at
I know.
whether the structure fits in the building. And what I'm telling you
Yeah.
is that when you add 692 feet on the rear, that's a structural thing, so that does impact you. The dumpster is in the back left corner. You guys don't.
We don't do
This
dumpsters.
dumpsters usually, so I won't talk to you about the dumpster.
Thank you.
I think what's most important that the Historic District does deal with is that this is in a neighborhood. It's not in the middle of downtown. It's in a regular neighborhood. And if they put that,
It is Islington Street.
it is, I know that.
So
but-
It's a quarter,
These
primary
are
quarter.
not the sort of things that we consider, Liz. I
Right, but
want you to understand.
I know what you
and
consider. I come
possibly
here all the
stop.
time. I want you to think about that if you put the addition that's on the back in the front, that's all structure, right? So that to me is Historic District. If you move the addition to the front, it would make for a better building for the whole neighborhood in terms of everything.
But what's it gonna look like?
But that's what the purpose of this is.
That's what we care about.
Gas stations are boxes. They are a box. So
appreciate these
if you add onto the back, if you just do it's 11, so the building is 48 feet wide, if I got it right. If you took the addition off the back and put it on the front, it would take up 11 more feet under the canopy. The canopy is 36 by 48. The gas station itself is 28 by 48. If they enlarged on the front, it could still be the square. All the windows are gonna be different. There is not anything original in this building when they're done. But if they put the addition on the front, including the extra room that they want on the side, that would shift the size of that canopy in the front, which would reduce the number of people sitting outside, which is for another committee. But it would also still maintain the box shape, which is what's traditional for all of the old gas stations. They were a box, a square box. That is not going to be a square box. It's going to be a completely different shape. And if you look at page 239, could you bring up 239, please, Nick?
I don't know what that is on 39.
Okay, go down one more, so you can see where you are. What's the picture that you have where you have the? what's the-
881, Nick.
There?
Yeah.
Yes? No?
Next one up. Go up one.
One
Go up
more,
one in the, I'm talking, go down. In that series, there's a couple of pictures. That one there. So if you look at the shape of the building on the far right side, where they show you the canopy, you guys were asking about the canopy and the silver and the fact that it's going to be all metal. And they're going to put all the mechanicals on the back where all the residents are, but that's the only place they really can do it. But the back of the building, they show you it looking square, but if you look at the plans, it's not going to be square, and it's going to be so much closer to the residentials on the back. So part of the historic district is not only the shape of the building, but it's also how it impacts the people who live near it. And that's what I want you to consider when you look at this. This is all a wonderful idea. And I've lived next to this thing. I know how awful it looks and how wonderful it would be to have a nice restaurant in there, similar to the kitchen or something in size. But I also understand fully that the Historic District Commission does have to do with how big a building is, the shape of the building, how it looks compared to other buildings next door to it.
Well, there's nothing that
There's
looks
nothing.
like that, and they're
There's no
taking this,
contact.
they're elevating this really atrocious spot into
Right.
something
But
that's
I'm
going to
just
be
saying
very
that when you
aesthetic.
do your elevation, that you need to think about the neighbors. You're moving something that has, so if they have 30 feet in the back right now, and now they end up with 12 feet 5, that means they cannot have any parking back there. You're going to impact what happens at the next committee. You guys work in isolation. The dumpster's in the far left corner. 3 feet actually, from the property line. But if you move that addition to the front, they would have room to move their dumpster a little bit further away from the property line. Imagine that. But I know you don't have to do with the dumpster, but if you allow the building to be built with 692 feet on the back,
So,
do you
yeah.
understand how this?
I
it's-
understand. So what you have to do is you have to appear
I
in
know what I
front of
have
the
to do.
town.
I go to all the meetings.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to
But that's why I
do
know
that.
that your meeting impacts
I know it. So
the next meeting. That's why
without
I'm
this
bringing it
getting
back.
to be this sort of thing.
Yes, I know, I'm just gonna.
I
and
want
so
to
the
thank
other-
you for the work you've done.
Right, and the other thing is just, this is kind of a history of gas stations in New Hampshire. I thought
Right.
you might find it interesting. Thank you.
Very
The thing I
interesting.
just want to say is, it's not necessarily historic, but it's so hard to run a restaurant right now. I mean, they're folding left and right, and I tried to open one and it failed because I didn't have enough square footage to have enough people to make a go of it. So I don't, if they were to switch that design, I think it would set themselves up for potential failure.
I also would like to say,
Huh?
please don't build on the front of the building because that's your facade. And that's what you're trying to maintain, and it's what is the face that shows you that this is a historic.
That's where the story is told.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, so you heard some opinions.
Yep.
This one note on the
Yeah.
square footage, in order to do a bagel, the way that Sean's very meticulous about his bagels, they rise, the dough needs to rise over, you actually need a fair amount of space. That's why the kitchen has as much space as it has in it, and it's still a small kitchen.
Trying to squeeze it all in here and run out
Yeah.
of seats,
So
basically.
that's where,
This is going to be bagels then.
all the bagels.
Oh. Getty Bagels.
Getty a bagel.
Funny.
Motion to continue?
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
Aye.